Chapter 464. Calamity. 4. This huge heart was sparkling and translucent, and the light around it was as resplendent as a diamond. Although it had infinite colors, it was strangely transparent. In the center of the heart, there was a person sitting cross-legged. The person seemed to be undergoing millions of changes at every moment. Millions of ribbon-like strange bands of light extended from the back of the person's head, connecting to every inch of the giant heart and controlling the slightest change of the heart. So powerful, it must be that great expert. However, even if you can reach here, you won't be able to break through my supreme demon heart of the great freedom universe. This great freedom supreme universe demon heart is one of the most exquisite divine abilities of the great freedom magic passed down by the previous sacred lord. However, it needs to absorb at least a part of the world in order to be cultivated, and it also needs the divine mirror of the heavens as its core. I originally thought that it would be impossible to cultivate this divine ability, but I didn't think that I would have such an opportunity today. It's all thanks to you. A voice that went straight into the heart and shook the souls of all living beings came from the heart. Originally, it could be cultivated by absorbing one world. Now that you've absorbed hundreds of thousands of worlds, this art should have begun to refine the spirit into the void and become closer to the Tao, but it should be enough. Luo Fan looked at the supreme demon heart of the great freedom universe and finally responded to the demon lord's words for the first time. Arts and techniques were existences that borrowed their own power and used various techniques to draw out the power of the supreme Tao to achieve their own goals. Every divine ability and Dharma art had different realms. Normally speaking, although a newly cultivated divine ability or dharmic art could draw out a certain kind of power from the supreme great Tao, it was barely enough. It was almost impossible to truly raise this kind of power to the limit and completely reach the supreme great Tao to unleash the effect of this kind of power. If he continued to cultivate this divine ability and technique, and continued to refine this divine ability and technique, one day, he would be able to refine this divine ability and technique to its peak. After reaching the pinnacle, this divine ability and magic art would undergo mysterious changes. From drawing out the power of the supreme Tao, it would transform into the power itself. That was the art of returning to the void and becoming the Tao. This process had a name: refining the spirit into the void. In reality, there was another realm after divine powers and magic arts, and that was Tao transformation. This realm was extremely profound, and it could not be described with words. Its might was so great that it was absolutely unimaginable for those who had not reached it. For a divine ability or magic art to truly reach such a realm, not only did it require the cultivator to expend endless energy to cultivate and temper it, it also required the divine ability or magic art itself to reach an extremely profound level of profundity. According to the various divine powers that existed in the primordial world, there were less than 1,000 divine powers that had a chance of attaining the Tao transformation realm. Among them, most of them were divine abilities created by Luo Fan. Even if it wasn't created by Luo Fan, it was obtained by other innate gods with the help of Pan Gu's primordial spirit. Even for Luo Fan, apart from the main divine abilities and magic arts recorded in the Tao Fruit Tao scripture, the Hercules summoning technique, the yin-yang measurement method, and the heavenly slaughter technique that he had previously used, were simply unable to meet the requirements of Tao transformation. This Supreme Freedom Universe Demon Heart was the first time that Luo Fan had seen a divine power that could refine the spirit into the void, apart from the divine powers and magic arts that he had cultivated. Although there were some divine senses created by other innate gods in the untainted world that were qualified to be transformed into Tao, he had never seen any innate god who could advance his divine senses and magic arts to the realm of void return and Tao every time he cultivated a divine sense or magic art because of his extremely high cultivation realm. He had never seen any innate god who could advance his own divine senses and magic arts to the realm of void return and Tao. As for the higher realm of Tao transformation, even Luo Fan couldn't achieve it because he didn't put too much effort into a divine power or magic art, let alone other innate gods. It was precisely because of this reason that Luo Fan developed a lot of interest when he saw the supreme carefree universe divine ability. Refining the spirit into the void? I didn't expect the cultivation of divine powers to reach such a realm. It seems that the previous sacred lord didn't impart everything to me. Hearing what Luo Fan said, the Freedom Demon Master sighed leisurely. There are usually 3 realms for the cultivation of divine powers and magic arts: initial success, void transformation, and Tao transformation. As long as it's a divine power or magic art, it's usually qualified to be initial success. However, only some exquisite and profound divine powers are qualified to be void transformation. As for Tao transformation, it must be at least a supreme-level divine power or magic art. Although your so-called Freedom Supreme Universe Demon Heart has the word Supreme on it, it is not a true supreme magical power. At most, it can only achieve the realm of transforming the void into the Tao. From the names of the divine powers, it's clear that the previous sacred lord didn't know how to correctly classify divine powers and magic arts. It's not that he held back from you, Luo Fan said with a faint smile. Facing this so-called Supreme Freedom Universe Demon Heart, he didn't feel any pressure at all. The divine powers that entered the process of refining the spirit into the void were still too low for him. No matter how much power he absorbed, it wouldn't be much of a threat. Moreover, he was currently reborn from a drop of blood and had the Tai E Dao fruit in his dantian. Although the power he could unleash was much weaker than his original body, he could still unleash 1/10,000th of his original body's power. He was far more powerful than all the innate gods in the chaos world. He could destroy the world easily, so why would he be afraid of the Freedom Demon Master? I see. Since you're so kind as to explain the misunderstanding between me and the previous sacred lord, I'll be merciful and let you die a quick death, the Freedom Demon Master said. As he spoke, the huge heart suddenly trembled violently. Then, the mysterious light that filled the boundless void suddenly surged violently. After a short while, it shrank at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had already formed a huge sphere around the demon heart, revealing the scene behind the mysterious light. It was a boundless void. In the endless distance, there were specks of light that flashed more than once. It looked like the void of the universe in the virtual world, but it was fundamentally different from the void of the universe. Although there was nothing in the void of the universe, there was still space and time. In this place, space and time didn't even exist. It was like a void, and in the seemingly endless distance, there weren't stars flashing, but outer realms after outer realms. Stepping into this void of nothingness, Luo Fan couldn't help but gain some understanding. He naturally knew that the seemingly endless specks of light were actually not far away from this place. As long as he wanted to, he could reach the specks of light in a single step, or even directly walk into the light. After all, there was no space or time in this expanse of the void. In a place where there was no space and no time, the distance and the length of time were naturally meaningless. No matter how far away it seemed, it was no different from being close at hand. No matter how long it seemed to take, there was no difference in the location here. I see. No wonder I was able to attain grand unity Tao fruit so easily. Luo Fan came to a sudden realization. Previously, Luo Fan was a little surprised. After all, attaining grand unity Tao fruit wasn't so easy even with his main body's half-step grand unity true number. According to Luo Fan's original calculations, it would take at least 10,000 years to truly condense it. But previously it was only for a moment and he could almost achieve it with just a thought. It was very different from that calculation. At that time, although Luo Fan didn't directly consider this point, in fact, he had some doubts in the depths of his heart. Until now, when he truly understood the nature of the void in front of him, he truly understood the mystery. At the same time, he also understood why the Supreme Freedom Universe Demon Heart could so quickly begin to refine the spirit into the void from the initial realm, and even reach the profound realm close to the Tao. It seems that practicing here is a good choice. With this in mind, he put his hands together and gently pulled outwards. In the blink of an eye, a gray light slowly condensed between his hands. This gray light seemed to have substance. Although it was just a light, it made people feel that this light seemed to have existed here since ancient times, and would exist eternally. No power could destroy it or even shake it. As expected, Luo Fan looked at the light and smiled. This light was a magic that Luo Fan had created on the spot, the myriad illusionary soldiers, magic. The complexity of this magic was a first-class existence even among all of Luo Fan's magic art. Even if it couldn't compare to the 3,000 worlds, it was not inferior to the art of creation. Normally, to cultivate this magic art, even with the power of Luo Fan's half-step grand unity true number, it would take at least 10,000 years to be able to cultivate it. But at this moment it only took him a few breaths, and in the time it took for him to put his hands together and open them again, he had actually cultivated it. Moreover, he had directly surpassed the initial realm, and directly cultivated to the realm of Tao transformation. From this one could tell exactly how mysterious and strange the space here was, that there was no time or space here. When any kind of divine ability or magic art crossed the initial stage and stepped into the realm of void transformation and Tao formation, the increase in power was secondary. The most important thing was that this divine ability would possess some kind of indestructible property. The Supreme Great Tao was a mysterious existence that was born with the birth of the world, and was destroyed with the destruction of the world. And when a magic art reached the virtual level, it would naturally become a certain kind of power of the Supreme Great Tao. To a certain extent, it had already formed an extremely mysterious connection with the Supreme Great Tao, and naturally, it would have some kind of Supreme Great Tao characteristic. If one wanted to destroy this kind of magic art, unless the cultivator dispersed it or used an even stronger magic art to crush it, it would exist forever and would never be destroyed. In other words, at this moment, if Luo Fan were to casually throw this myriad transformation divine armament into any world, then this magic art would exist forever and would never disappear. Until the destruction of the primordial world, it would still display its unfathomable power. Luo Fan raised his hand and gently beckoned. The gray light suddenly rushed forward and instantly arrived 3 feet above his head. It twisted and changed, and at every moment there were thousands of different forms constantly changing. No matter how strong one's eyesight was, they would not be able to tell exactly what form it was. And at this moment, the ball of light in front of Luo Fan that wrapped around the demon heart had already condensed into a giant with 3 heads and 6 arms. Standing in the air, there were 2 giant 9-headed snakes under its feet, and its 6 hands each formed 6 different hand seals. This giant was incomparably tall, corresponding to the demon heart from before. The size of the demon heart, compared to the size of the giant, was like a normal person's heart compared to the entire body of a person. The 3 faces of this giant with 3 heads and 6 arms had different expressions. One was as cold as ice, one was smiling, and one was glaring angrily. That cold-as-ice face made anyone who saw it involuntarily feel like dead water. Even if their father died in front of them, they would not be moved at all. His smiling face could make anyone who saw him feel joy from the bottom of their hearts, even if his entire family was wiped out. And that glaring face could make anyone feel anger from the bottom of their heart, even if they were in the bridal chamber, winning the imperial examinations, after a long drought and after a rain, or meeting an old friend in a foreign land. This giant was condensed by that mysterious light. The demon heart was located in the heart of this giant. Although the entire giant was condensed by light, it looked like it was formed by real flesh and blood. There was no difference at all between it and real flesh and blood. Even Luo Fan could feel the boundless blood qi and strong vitality in this giant's body. Die. The giant's three mouths opened at the same time. The indifference, joy, and anger in their voices were mixed together, showing some kind of unique charm. After saying that, the giant's 6 arms formed hand seals at the same time and blasted towards Luo Fan. There was no distance in this void. Almost in the blink of an eye, the hand seals had already arrived above Luo Fan's head, like 6 huge worlds crushing down on Luo Fan. Facing these 6 huge hand seals, Luo Fan's expression did not change in the slightest. With a casual point of his finger, the gray light above his head suddenly shook, transformed, and rushed forward, turning into 6 giant hands that also formed 6 hand seals and pressed upwards. The 6 hand seals formed by this magic power were tougher, more mysterious, and more powerful than the 6 hand seals above. The 12 hand seals collided in pairs, instantly creating an earth-shattering explosion. Countless thunderbolts appeared out of nowhere in the void where there was no time and space. The shock waves from the explosions were so powerful that they instantly spread to infinitely far places, causing the boundless heaven and earth that could be seen to the naked eye to tremble violently as if it was about to collapse. 3 muffled groans came out at the same time. The 6 handprints of the giant collapsed with a loud bang. The 6 handprints of Luo Fan's divine ability directly smashed the 6 arms into pieces, followed the 6 arms up, and directly bombarded the body of the giant. Luo Fan's myriad illusionary divine weapon had already transformed the void into the Tao, while the limitless Devil Master's great freedom supreme universe Devil Heart was only in the realm of refining the spirit into the void. It was only a step closer to the Tao, and there was still a final juncture before it reached the Tao. The two of them were in 2 completely different realms. One could imagine how great the gap between them was. Even though the great freedom supreme universe demon heart had absorbed all the energy from the outside world, it still couldn't close the gap between the realms. At the moment of collision, the attack formed by the demon heart naturally collapsed. The Freedom Demon Master clearly didn't expect such an unbelievable change. With a loud roar, his huge body emitted traces of mysterious light. 1,000 arms instantly condensed, and the mysterious and profound handprints of each powerhouse directly pressed down on the 6 handprints condensed by Luo Fan's magical ability. It must be known that the great Freedom Supreme Universe Demon Heart had absorbed all the energy from the outside world. In terms of power, it was tens of thousands of times stronger than the 100 illusionary soldiers. This kind of hand seal that consumed endless power was naturally endless. Luo Fan looked at the 1,000 hand seals and slightly smiled. With a turn of his hand, the positions of the 6 hand seals slightly changed, and in an instant, a mysterious array was formed. There was an eternal power that appeared out of thin air in this array. This wave of eternal power was mysterious and boundless. Once it was formed, it would display unparalleled might and ripple outwards. The 1,000 hand seals suddenly froze, and were instantly fixed in place. In that instant, the 6 handprints formed by the shape-shifting 1,000 illusionary divine armament passed through the gaps between the 1,000 handprints and pressed down on the giant. There was no time or space in this place, and the handprint that had lost all obstructions directly pressed down on the giant's body. Another earth-shattering sound, like the destruction of heaven and earth, like the creation of a new world, like the collapse of the universe, came from the point where the 6 hand seals came into contact with the giant's body. Following that, one heaven and earth after another appeared out of thin air. This boundless void without time or space was replaced by another heaven and earth. The surrounding environment constantly changed. He transformed into the great freedom supreme heart turning heaven, nirvana consciousness destroying heaven, one world after another burst out of the giant's body. Wave after wave of power gushed out of the giant's body along with the eruption of these worlds. As the power of the world surged out of the giant's body, there was also an indescribable force of impact. Chapter 465. Using the tribulation to refine a treasure in the primordial world, the hole formed by the collapse of the space-time portal was originally blocked by dim, mysterious light. However, at this moment an extremely huge change suddenly occurred. The mysterious light that had originally blocked the holes suddenly disappeared into thin air one after another in an extremely strange order. At the same time, countless fragments suddenly surged out of the holes where the light had disappeared. In the void, they converged into a strange long river, gathering boundless innate yuan qi and chaotic yuan qi. They circled in the void, gradually forming one mysterious place after another. They were gray, incomparably chaotic, incomparably explosive, but also contained boundless vitality, as if they were in the state of chaos before the world was created. These mysterious places constantly gathered in the void. Some of the rivers that flowed out of the holes that were relatively close to each other gathered together, forming mysterious places that were several times larger than before. After the holes that the river of fragments had rushed out of, they seemed to have completely lost their reason to exist. In an instant, they collapsed with a loud bang. In the end, they were suddenly pressed down by the void of the primordial world and disappeared without a trace. Such mysterious places formed out of thin air one after another, and the holes collapsed and disappeared with a loud bang. Gradually, the holes formed by the more than 9 billion spacetime portals in the primordial world were finally completely replaced by the more than 1 billion mysterious places. When the last hole disappeared, when the last mysterious place was formed, there were no more spacetime portals in the primordial world, nor were there any passageways that led to the outer realms. The mysterious places were in different locations. Some were thousands of miles above the void like a cluster of clouds. Some directly appeared on the ground like a mist, some directly entered the ground, forming what looked like lakes, and some directly entered the ground, turning into streams of underground mist. There were all kinds of strange things, appearing very strange. And after these mysterious places that were gray, extremely chaotic, extremely explosive, and contained endless vitality were formed, the power of the connate origin Qi and chaotic origin Qi increased by more than 10 million times. In addition to the connate essence Qi and chaotic essence Qi, he also began to absorb other kinds of energy, such as evil Qi, star essence Qi, astral wind, lightning fire, Ewood spiritual Qi. Everything, as long as it was an energy that existed in the untainted world, he would not hesitate to absorb it. Luo Fan's real body floated in the mysterious position in the endless starry sky. Everything that happened in the untainted land was reflected in the miniature image below him, and he could see it clearly. At this moment, just as these mysterious places began to absorb energy crazily, he could clearly see that the entire primordial world was undergoing an extremely mysterious, subtle, and natural change. At this time, the shadow below seemed to have turned into some kind of self-aware object. It began to slowly wriggle, tremble, and slowly grow. Other creatures might not be able to recognize the 1 billion mysterious place, but Luo Fan, who had already opened up several small kiliocosms, was very clear about it. It was a chaotic state before the world was created. It could be said that it was the embryonic form of a world. At this moment, these mysterious places were undergoing changes. They were using the supreme power of the great Tao of the primordial world and endless power to evolve mysterious places one after another. These places might be small kiliocosms, medium kiliocosms, or large kiliocosms. As for which mysterious place corresponded to which world, it was the most profound mystery of the supreme great Tao. It contained the essence of the world's evolution. Even the current Luo Fan could not completely understand it. I see. Looking at the changes in the miniature image below, Luo Fan's eyes flashed with enlightenment. In his senses, at this moment, the supreme great Tao that existed in the primordial world was undergoing an earth-shattering change. The subtle change that had occurred when the endless blood and flesh of the otherworldly demons had fused with the primordial world had increased by hundreds of millions of times. Originally, it was only advancing towards a more perfect state, but at this moment, it was as if billions of years had been compressed into an instant. It was constantly changing and perfecting in an astonishing manner. In just a short span of a few breaths, the Supreme Great Tao no longer had any traces of its original form. Even at this moment, Luo Fan could feel that the lightning origin in the Supreme Great Tao was more than 10 times stronger and more complete than before. The outer realm was originally a part of the primordial world. It was the endless world that had evolved from the residual power and chaos when Pangu had created the world. These worlds were naturally far inferior to the primordial world, but they also had their own rules of spacetime. To a certain extent, they were integrated with the primordial world, affecting and resonating with each other. The existence of these outer realms would not affect the integrity of the primordial world. However, if these worlds fused with the primordial world, it would be equivalent to gathering all the power of Pangu when he had created the world into the primordial world. It would be equivalent to incorporating all of Pangu's effects on the chaos into the perfection of the primordial world. This was extremely beneficial to the primordial world, but it could not be seen just from the comparison of the power of these outer realms and the primordial world. It was also because of this that the fusion of these outer realms caused the Supreme Great Tao of the primordial world to undergo such a huge change. To put it more straightforwardly, these outer realms contained all kinds of natural laws and original natural laws that belonged to Pangu but were scattered out of the universe. At this moment, as these worlds merged with the Great Tao, these natural laws and original natural laws naturally became part of the Great Tao, allowing the Great Tao to grow indescribably. Luo Fan had already used the opportunity that Lei Jiuxiao had obtained to enter the lightning origin of the Supreme Great Tao and obtain a portion of it. At this moment, as the Supreme Great Tao grew, he felt that the lightning origin of the primordial world had become even deeper, more profound, and more complicated. The evolution within it had also increased by countless times. The perception of the endless changes of the primordial world's lightning that had emerged from the bottom of his heart had completely disappeared. As his thoughts flashed, his mind obtained endless information from the Supreme Great Tao. In the blink of an eye, countless lightning spells and divine abilities related to lightning flowed through his mind. Then, he directly merged them into the Tao Fruit's Great Tao Scripture. After obtaining these lightning spells and divine abilities, the Tao Fruit's Great Tao Scripture rapidly grew stronger. In almost an instant, it had grown several times stronger than before. The specific reason why Luo Fan had made such great progress in the lightning origin was because he had obtained the lightning origin back then. As for the other laws and origin of laws that had nothing to do with lightning, he had not obtained them from the lightning origin. As a result, although the Supreme Great Tao had many methods and divine abilities projected into his mind, the gains were much less than the gains from the lightning divine abilities. Although the corresponding scriptures of the Tao Fruit's Great Tao Scripture had increased, compared to the scriptures related to lightning, it was much less. In the primordial world, there were many innate gods and countless other living beings. Among them, it was impossible that there were no living beings other than Luo Fan who could communicate with the Supreme Great Tao. As a result, at this moment, many living beings' minds flashed with inspiration. It was as if they had comprehended many mysterious mysteries that they had never comprehended before. It was as if many obstacles that had shackled them for a long time could be easily broken. Immediately, thousands of beings of all kinds broke out of their respective states. This also caused the primordial world to have another hundreds of powerful existences in the realm of true immortals. Even Reverend Tan Mu had broken through the bottleneck between the realm of true immortals and the realm of golden immortals, which had been shackling him for tens of thousands of years. He had truly broken through the shackles from the realm of half-step golden immortals and reached the realm of true golden immortals. In an instant, he had even approached the peak of the realm of golden immortals. Reverend Tanmu did not seem to have done much during the great calamity of the world, but in reality, he had cleared out the millions of space-time portals around him. The number of extraterrestrial demons he had destroyed was more than 10 times that of the god of Bujo Mountain and the others. At the moment, he was killing those extraterrestrial devils who hovered in the void and could not move at all. Suddenly, he broke through the shackles and achieved the realm of gold immortal that he had always dreamed of. He could not help but feel a great sense of joy from the bottom of his heart. A great sense of freedom and joy filled his mind. He could not help but let out a long roar of endless joy. After the roar, he could not be bothered with the extraterrestrial demons that could not move and could only wait for death. He took a step into the void and returned to his main body, which had merged with the void. After reaching the realm of golden immortals, he had a new understanding of the great Wood Dao verification technique. With a thought, his body spread out and instantly enveloped the world. When he reached the realm of golden immortals, because his cultivation had increased to a sufficient level, he already had the ability to distort the void of the primordial world. After he wrapped his body around the world, the void distorted violently. The world that had completely fused with his soul and body was instantly cut apart, forming a huge sphere that slowly floated up, leaving behind an existence that was similar to the void that Luo Fan's body was currently in after being reborn from a drop of blood. In an extremely short period of time, even the word instant was billions of times slower than it. The huge void was completely devoured by the surrounding void and returned to normal. It was as if this place had been like this since ancient times and nothing had happened. It was precisely the void that had no time and no space. Under the self-healing effect of the primordial world, it had been repaired almost at the same time as it appeared. After Reverend Tanmu cut this world out, he used the mysterious mystical ability of the Great Wood Dao verification technique. It suddenly changed and pressed down, condensing it into an appearance that was exactly the same as before, but it emitted an extremely powerful and shocking aura. After diligently seeking, I finally achieved the void incarnation. However, it seems that I still lack the tempering of a heavenly tribulation. It's not complete yet. At this moment, the world is being suppressed by Brother Luo. The heavenly tribulation can't be born, but we have to wait until the great tribulation is over, Reverend Tanmu said with an inexplicable expression. As he spoke, he had a thought and his body became a blur, disappearing into the void. Cutting the void of the primordial world to form his own body required incredible mystical abilities. Even if he could do that, he would definitely suffer the backlash of the primordial world because he had destroyed it. That was the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, because this was the punishment for destroying the primordial world, the intensity of the heavenly tribulation would far exceed the intensity of the heavenly tribulation that living beings encountered when they attained the Tao. It could be predicted that when the great tribulation of heaven and earth passed, the moment the mysterious yellow light that filled the entire primordial world disappeared, the most shocking and terrifying heavenly tribulation in the history of the primordial world would descend. Although Reverend Tanmu had already reached the golden immortal realm, he did not have much confidence that he could easily survive this heavenly tribulation. Therefore, he had to take advantage of the opportunity when the heavenly tribulation was frozen and could not be born. He had to make a good plan and refine some artifacts that could protect him during the heavenly tribulation. Luo Fan was completely aware of the changes in the primordial world. Naturally, he knew Reverend Tanmu's actions and what he would encounter next. He secretly sympathized with him. However, he did not have any intention of interfering and helping Reverend Tanmu. After all, Reverend Tanmu's encounter was the result of his own choice. It was also his way of proving the Tao. Outsiders could not interfere at all. Suddenly, a hint of enlightenment flashed through Luo Fan's mind. Since fellow Taoist Tan Mu can use this opportunity to escape, why can't I use this opportunity to refine Dharma treasures? After this thought flashed through his mind, countless ideas flashed through Luo Fan's mind. In the blink of an eye, incomparably mysterious and complicated Dharma spells were displayed in his mind. After thinking about it carefully, Luo Fan knew that there was nothing wrong with his idea. With a thought, he pointed casually. The void Wuji palace in his sea of consciousness instantly turned into a ray of earthen yellow light and rushed out from between his eyebrows, directly shooting into the miniature of the primordial world below. This earthen yellow light was as bright as a diamond. Although it was only a ray of light, it was as heavy as billions of huge mountains, and as sturdy as a supreme existence that could never be broken in the world. When it entered the miniature, it naturally appeared in the primordial world and directly shot towards a rather huge embryonic world that was evolving in the primordial world. It seemed to be able to evolve into a major kiliacosm. The speed of this ray of light was extremely fast. In a flash, it entered the embryonic world. With a sudden turn, it condensed into a square palace in the deepest part of the embryonic world. Although this square palace was only a few feet long, it emitted a simple and eternal spirit. It floated in the embryonic world that was undergoing a shocking evolution, as if it could suppress the void of the universe. In an instant, it suppressed all the changes in the embryonic world, making the embryonic world extremely calm and gentle, as if it was just a cloud of gray mist. The Void Wuji Palace was a primordial unity treasure, refined by Luo Fan. Needless to say, its power was amazing. Because it was one with Luo Fan's mind, it could even be regarded as another body of Luo Fan. With a thought, the divine sense incantations that were displayed in his mind instantly rushed out of the Void Wuji Palace, turned into 129,600 halos of divine sense, and enveloped the Void Wuji Palace in a very complicated and mysterious way. These halos were flat. They enveloped the limitless palace in a three-dimensional manner, just like the orbits of 129,600 planets around a huge star. Although they were just halos, they seemed to reveal the infinite mysteries of the universe and seemed to reflect the ultimate truth of the great way between heaven and earth. These 129,600 halos directly filled the entire embryonic world, bringing the entire embryonic world into the sphere of influence of the Void Wuji Palace. After that, the 129,600 halos each began to move according to a mysterious frequency. As they moved, the embryonic world began to explode and become chaotic again, but it was full of infinite vitality. The inexhaustible Xiantian Qi, chaotic Qi, astral Qi, star essence Qi, and so on seemed to be attracted by a black hole, crazily pouring into the embryonic world. However, this time, it was not pushing the embryonic world to evolve into a real world. Instead, it was pulled by the 129,600 halos of divine sense, pouring into the Void Wuji Palace in an incredible way, into the dimensional realm, and into the 2,999 embryonic worlds in the dimensional realm. The embryonic world, which had been stagnant for countless years, began to evolve again. Gradually, it was clear and turbid, and gradually, small kiliacosms were formed one after another. The various energies that poured into the embryonic world were not just pure energies. They contained a mysterious power of the supreme great way of the untainted land, which had the strange ability to promote the embryonic world to evolve into a real world. When they entered the embryonic forms of the minor kiliacosm in the Wuji Palace, the embryonic forms of the minor kiliacosm naturally began to evolve. However, it didn't mean that the evolution of the minor kiliacosm only required energy. Chapter 466. Chapter 506. DH Bizarre Demon Venerable, Tao Transforming Realm. It was unknown whether Luo Fan's deceptive divine sense had really deceived the Supreme Great Way, or if the Supreme Great Way had rewarded Luo Fan for his great achievement in blocking the great tribulation of heaven and earth. Luo Fan's deceptive method was actually very successful, allowing the 2,999 embryonic worlds inside the Wuji Palace to evolve and grow rapidly under the infusion of the infinite energy. The embryonic worlds gradually became clear and turbid, producing mysterious worlds one after another. These worlds were unimaginably mysterious. Each world was in the most complete state. All the rules and dharma were extremely complete. Although they could not be compared with the untainted world, they were not inferior to the spirit kiliacosm that Luo Fan had created and perfected through countless years of hard work. Although these worlds were not completely formed, one could already vaguely see the various mysterious characteristics that they would have after the final evolution. The 2,999 spirit kiliacosms were generally similar, but the rules and dharma of each spirit kiliacosm were quite different from those of the other spirit kiliacosms. Each spirit kiliacosm had its own tendency. If each spirit kiliacosm evolved creatures, they would have all kinds of special abilities that could not appear in the other spirit kiliacosms. They might even be special creatures. Luo Fan quietly sensed the changes inside the limitless void palace with a satisfied look on his face. His mind and will carefully guarded every detail of the 2,999 minor kiliacosms that were evolving. The creation and evolution of the world were the deepest and most mysterious mysteries of the world. All the mysteries of the great Tao, all the divine powers, and all the origins in the untainted world could be found in the process of the world's evolution. However, the minor kiliacosm that was evolving at the moment was many times inferior to the untainted world. The mysteries, divine powers, and origins contained in the minor kiliacosm could not be truly complete, nor could they compare to the untainted world. After all, it was a way for a person to know the mysteries of the Great Way, know all kinds of divine sense, and obtain all kinds of origins. Even for Luo Fan, who was already half a step away from the primordial unity true number, being able to carefully understand the entire process was extremely beneficial. At this moment, the great tribulation of heaven and earth in the untainted world had come to an end. What was left was the intense battle in the virtual world. In that battle, with so many people and such a huge advantage, it was impossible for them to lose. Instead, because they had to settle the battles in the virtual world, the demon-killing cultivators would have more opportunities to train and improve their cultivation levels. This was extremely beneficial to improving the cultivation level of the untainted world. Luo Fan could even predict that after the Great Tribulation, not only would the primordial world become more complete and perfect, even the cultivation levels of the countless living beings scattered throughout the primordial world would increase greatly. There might even be many perfected immortals and golden immortals. It had been hundreds of thousands of years since the primordial world had been created. It had not even been 5 yuanhui. Being able to have a cultivator of this level was already something that any cultivator would be proud of. At this moment, outside the untainted land, Luo Fan's body, which he had formed with the help of the blood drop rebirth technique, floated in the void. He was surrounded by nothingness. In front of him, the 3-headed, 6-armed giant formed from mysterious light did not collapse, but its body was already faintly discernible and blurry, as if it was about to disappear at any moment. At the heart of the giant, the huge unrestrained supreme universe devil heart was locked by a gray light. It could only expand and contract slightly and vibrate, but it could not instill the power of the devil heart into the huge body formed by the mysterious light. It could not control the huge body to make the slightest movement. Within the huge demon heart, the light emitted by the Freedom Demon Lord's body changed unpredictably. Countless profound and complicated sounds came out of the Freedom Demon Lord's mouth, rousing the power of the huge demon heart. He controlled the demon heart to fight against the gray light. However, the gray light was like a pillar of heaven and earth. It did not look like a ray of light at all. Instead, it looked like hundreds of millions of mountains, so heavy and stable that it was beyond the imagination of all living beings. No matter how the power of the devil heart surged, no matter how it resisted, it could not shake the light at all. It was like an ant trying to shake a tree. It was extremely ridiculous. How is this possible? The unrestrained supreme universe devil heart swallowed hundreds of thousands of worlds. How could it be broken so easily? This was the only thought in the unrestrained demon master's mind. Everything that had happened just now was like a dream, and he was unable to believe what he had seen and experienced. In that instant, the spell Luo Fan cast turned into 6 handprints and hit the body of the giant formed by the unrestrained supreme universe devil heart. In that instant, he felt as if his entire demonic heart had been punched countless times. In an instant, the hundreds of thousands of outer realms it had absorbed with the help of the mysterious light were spat out like blood. The entire process could not be stopped. No matter how he stabilized the unrestrained supreme universe devil heart, no matter what method he used to suppress it, no matter how he condensed the power of the entire devil heart into one place, he could not stabilize the power of the unrestrained supreme universe devil heart. In just a few minutes, the hundreds of thousands of worlds that he had painstakingly absorbed through countless calculations had all been forcefully dug out. Moreover, under the effect of an incomparably powerful force, it suddenly collapsed, turning into streams of spatial fragments that directly seeped into the countless vortexes that had appeared out of thin air. As if attracted by a black hole, they frantically burrowed into the vortexes and finally completely disappeared from his sensing range. At this moment, the unrestrained supreme universe devil heart was only left with the state when it was first born. It was formed from the giant crystal and the power of tens of thousands of extraterrestrial demons. It looked majestic, complete, crystal clear, and not much different from before, but in reality, it was just an empty shell. Even the body condensed from the mysterious light could no longer be controlled. Luo Fan's divine ability directly pierced through the surface of the huge body and directly reached the demon heart, completely locking it. The unrestrained demon master knew very well that he had become a fish on the chopping block. The reason he could still survive was not because the power of the demon heart could protect him, but because the great power in front of him did not want to kill him. For the unrestrained demon master to be able to absorb the hundreds of thousands of worlds and destroy the countless extraterrestrial demons without any psychological burden, it was easy to imagine how ruthless his heart was. At this moment, after understanding his current situation, he slowly stopped struggling. His body trembled, and the demon heart of the supreme unrestrained universe suddenly collapsed, turning into a crystal-clear, colorful stream of light that completely wrapped around his body. This stream of light was as resplendent as a diamond, and the gorgeous colors within it constantly changed and swam, as if it was evolving into some kind of unfathomable mystery. As the great Freedom Supreme Universe Devil Heart collapsed, the 3-headed, 6-armed giant that had been formed because of the Devil Heart also collapsed. It turned back into a mysterious light and scattered in all directions. It seemed like it was going to cover the sky and earth again and completely envelop the void of the entire outer realm. Seeing this, Luo Fan smiled. With a thought, he formed a fist with his right hand and punched forward. Although it was just a simple punch, it seemed to contain the supreme mysteries of all the martial arts in the world. It was as if this punch contained all the martial arts in the world, the universe, and the void. Although it was just a punch, it seemed to be able to destroy billions of worlds. It seemed to be able to open up billions of worlds, separate the void, and purify yin and yang. This punch was soundless and without a sound. The mysterious light that was spreading out and was about to fill up the entire space in the outer heavens and earth instantly collapsed. In the blink of an eye, it turned into countless specks of light and was gradually annihilated by the indescribable force of the punch. In the end, it disappeared without a trace after a few breaths, as if it had never appeared in the first place. As far as Luo Fan could see, there was only a pitch-black void. There was no matter, no energy, no space, and no time. There was only a colorful figure that seemed to be evolving some kind of mysterious mystery. It was wrapped in gray light and floated in front of him. The endless illusionary divine armaments was a divine ability created by Luo Fan. It had long reached the unbelievable realm of transforming the void into the Tao. Being enveloped by it was like being enveloped by the great Tao. As long as the person who was enveloped didn't have a divine ability of the same realm to resist it, then it was impossible to escape from the envelopment of this divine ability. It didn't matter how powerful the person wrapped in the divine ability was, or how much power they had absorbed. The demon heart of the limitless supreme universe that the demon master cultivated was also a rather mysterious divine ability. However, he had only cultivated it to the peak of basic mastery and had only just begun to refine it into the void. Under these circumstances, even if the demon master still had the power of the tens of thousands of worlds, he definitely wouldn't be able to break through the endless illusionary divine ability. Not to mention that the demon master only had the power of the tens of thousands of heavenly demons and the power of the crystal left. Therefore, compared to when the divine ability was still in the shape of the demon heart, the demon master was even more powerless to resist. He could only stand there silently, unable to do anything. Luo Fan took a step forward, and almost at the same time, he had already arrived in front of the Freedom Demon Master. Destroying hundreds of thousands of outer realms and killing billions and billions of living beings. Even if I keep you alive, you will definitely be killed by the untainted land. Luo Fan sighed. With a thought, the endless change illusionary god weapon shrunk and smashed towards the Zizai demon lord, wanting to kill him. The demon master knew that he was going to die in the next moment. However, there was no trace of fear on his face. It didn't look like he was about to die. Instead, it looked like he was accepting an invitation from a friend to be a guest. Demon Master, please save me. Just as the endless illusionary divine weapon cut open the demon heart of the limitless supreme universe and was about to come into contact with his body, the demon master suddenly cried out. As he said this, there seemed to be some mysterious and incredible existence in his body that suddenly shattered. After that, a strange force erupted and instantly expelled the power of the Freedom Demon Lord's tens of thousands of otherworldly demons that controlled the worlds outside the world. It caused the Freedom Demon Lord to suddenly have a supreme, profound, majestic, and boundless aura that seemed like the Grand Tao. A strong sense of caution flashed through Luo Fan's mind. This body of his had already obtained the Tai Tao fruit. Even though it was formed quickly and was tens of thousands of times weaker than the Tai Tao fruit of his main body, it was still the Tai scattered realm. Before, he was only at the true immortal realm, so he had complete control over the Demon Master's body. However, before the Demon Master said those words, he couldn't find the strange power hidden within the Demon Master's body. The moment this power appeared, it caused such a huge change to the Freedom Demon Master. This allowed him to instantly understand that the owner of this power was at least several times stronger than him. At the very least, it was the Tai Golden Realm. It could even be the supreme existence that obtained the Zenith Heaven Tao fruit. In an instant, he no longer held back. The Tai Tao fruit inside his body collapsed and turned into a wave of magic power that charged into the infinite change illusionary soldier. Magic power was an extremely mysterious existence that contained infinite power. It was formed from extremely complicated and mysterious three-dimensional talismans that could be used as any kind of god art. It was formed from the comprehension of a cultivator's entire life. Pouring all of one's magic power into a god art was equivalent to using the comprehension of a cultivator's entire life to strengthen a god art. By doing this, no matter what realm the god art was at, no matter how crude the god art was, it could strengthen the god art to an unimaginable realm. Even the God Arts realm could be strengthened to the Tao transformation realm. However, doing this would also cause the magic power to be contaminated by the God Art. This would greatly reduce the quality of the magic power and greatly affect the cultivator's future cultivation. It would take a long time and endless energy to remove this contamination. Could be said that the price was huge. However, to Luo Fan, this side effect didn't matter. After all, the Luo Fan here was merely a strand of Luo Fan's hair. Though it could grow into his original body, it was created to fight against the Freedom Demon Master. It was an existence that could be abandoned at any time. As long as he could kill the Freedom Demon Master, it would be worth it even if this body was destroyed. This kind of price that cultivators couldn't bear was nothing to him. The Infinite Change Illusionary Soldier received the support of all of Luo Fan's magic power, and its size didn't increase by much. However, the quality of the God Art increased by more than 10,000 times. This magical power was originally a grayish light, but at this moment, after receiving the support of Luo Fan's magic power, it began to give birth to endless changes. The originally gray existence split into countless black and white light. These black and white lights corresponded with each other and interacted with each other in an extremely profound and exquisite way, evolving the laws of heaven and earth and the mysteries of the universe. Every pair of black and white lights was like a yin and yang qi formed from the opening of chaos. With the help of the endless laws of heaven and earth and the mysteries of the universe, it created heaven and earth one after another. These heaven and earth were extremely small but complete. The power that they contained was no different from the real heaven and earth. Within the Infinite Change Illusionary Soldier, there were billions of black and white lights that were separated. Every pair of black and white lights quickly evolved into heaven and earth. When combined, this God Art contained billions of small heaven and earth. These heaven and earth were born and destroyed extremely quickly within this God Art. Almost every second, there were millions of cycles of life and death. Every time these heaven and earth were born and destroyed, it could produce endless power and explode with endless power. This was the Tao transformation realm. Tao transformation did not transform into the great Tao. Instead, it transformed the great Tao and evolved it into another extremely profound existence. Although Luo Fan knew that the cultivation process of the God Art was divided into three realms: initial success, void transformation, and Tao transformation, he did not know what kind of existence Tao transformation would transform into. After all, ever since Luo Fan started cultivating, he had at most cultivated a single divine ability to the state of transforming the void into the Tao. Although there were some God Arts that could be cultivated to the Tao transformation realm, he could not cultivate them. Therefore, at this moment, it could be said that this was the first time that Luo Fan knew how powerful and unbelievable the Tao transformation realm was. So that's how it is. Feeling the changes of the infinite illusionary divine weapon, Luo Fan's mind was filled with countless miraculous lights. In an instant, he seemed to have comprehended some kind of mystery that couldn't be described with words or even simulated with his mind. Following this understanding, the Infinite Change Illusionary Soldier began to change in a subtle and mysterious way. The Tao transformation realm that he originally used his spiritual energy to forcefully achieve seemed to have melded a little. It was as if it was easier to control and more agile than before. Interesting. Just then, the Demon Master Zizai suddenly said something that was clearly not something the Demon Master Zizai could say. Chapter 467. Chapter 507. Ancient Demon Sovereign. With these words, the Freedom Demon Master trembled slightly. With a tear, an unimaginable force acted on the spell that had reached the realm of Tao transformation. When the two collided, it was as if two huge worlds had collided with each other. In an instant, a destructive effect erupted. Amidst the boundless nothingness of the outer space, an incomparably huge sun was born with a loud rumble. Boundless lightning, fire, thunder and cold light illuminated the boundless nothingness of the outer space, making it visible to the naked eye. Taking advantage of this moment of intense light, Luo Fan could even easily see where the millions of outer realms were. He felt as if he could step into these outer realms at any time. That spell had reached the realm of Tao transformation and could split into endless yin and yang qi, constantly creating and destroying endless world. Its power had reached an unimaginable level. However, when it clashed with that power, it did not gain the upper hand at all. In that instant, it was pushed apart by that powerful force. Although it did not collapse because of this, it could only form a 30-meter-wide sphere that enveloped the Freedom Demon Master. It actually didn't shatter? The voice that seemed to come from the Supreme Tao said in shock. Following this, the body of the Freedom Demon Lord, which was wrapped in a mysterious light, twisted slightly and gradually turned into a humanoid existence. He was around 3 meters tall and looked extremely ugly at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, one would find that he was extremely ancient and gave off a mysterious aura as if the great Tao had descended upon the mortal world. This existence was so shocking, but Luo Fan was even more shocked. After all, he had poured all the primordial unity Tao fruits that he had attained in this body into this divine ability, the myriad illusionary divine weapon. The entire Tao divinity was almost formed from all of Luo Fan's achievements in this cultivation. Yet, such a powerful spell could not destroy the existence before him. This meant that this existence was at least tens of thousands of times stronger than him. Adding on the fact that this existence did not come in person and was only formed from the power hidden within the Freedom Demon Master's body, the power of this existence was estimated to be thousands of times stronger. I am Luo Fan. May I know who you are? Why did you intervene in the heavenly simulation battle of the primordial world? Luo Fan asked as his thoughts raced. The strength of the existence in front of him had already exceeded his imagination. Even though the being before him was only a manifestation of a tiny bit of power, if he wanted to obliterate it, he would have to grind it bit by bit. Even if it took him thousands of years, he would still be able to do it. However, the person hiding behind this existence was at least an existence of primordial unity metal level, so he had to be cautious. Battle of the Heavens? You're talking about the beginning of heaven tribulation, right? Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful existence in this world when it was just the heavenly opening tribulation? It seemed that this world was quite extraordinary. Not bad, not bad. I did not expect that the seed that I had planted back then would reap such a harvest. Looks like my luck is indeed quite great. Hearing Luo Fan's words, that strange and ancient-looking person revealed a joyous expression. Hearing this person's words, Luo Fan's heart thumped. He felt that the situation seemed to be a little off, and his vigilance was raised to the extreme. I wonder if you can tell me your name? Luo Fan frowned and asked again. Hearing Luo Fan's words, that person seemed to have just reacted. He looked at Luo Fan with great interest and said with a smile, "You're asking for my name? Never mind, to be able to cultivate such a remarkable ability in such a short period of time, your potential is astonishing. You are also qualified to know my name. I am the ancient demon venerable of the 3,000 venerables of the Hong Meng world." As this person spoke, a ray of light suddenly shot out from behind his head. 3 feet above his head, it evolved into a pitch-black world that seemed to contain endless mysterious existences. This world seemed to only have a radius of 10 feet on the outside, but on the inside it was boundless and extremely mysterious. With the appearance of this mysterious world, the myriad illusionary divine armament, which had already reached the Tao transformation realm, suddenly shook and was unexpectedly repelled once again. In an instant, the encirclement expanded to a diameter of 100 feet. Ancient demon venerable. 3,000 venerables. Hong Meng world. I see. When Luo Fan heard this person's words, he carefully sensed the pitch-black and mysterious world above his head and understood. He knew that the demon venerable in front of him was most likely a top existence that came from a complete world like the Jiuli Great World, which was created by another great divine ability. May I know why the demon venerable is here this time? Luo Fan's mind flashed as he lightly asked. This world can give birth to a heavenly demon that is compatible with my Tao, so it is fated with me. It should become my foreign dojo. The demon venerable did not have any intention of hiding and directly said. When Luo Fan heard this person's words, his mind turned cold. He did not suspect that this person was lying, nor did he suspect that this person was just bluffing to scare him. After all, the strength of the demon venerable in front of him was far beyond his imagination. There were 3 realms of the Tai Dao fruit: Tai loose number, Tai true number, and Tai golden number. The difference between each of these 3 realms was as great as the difference between the clouds and the mud. With Luo Fan's current cultivation realm of half-step Tai true number, if he met an existence that had truly achieved Tai true number, it would only take a slight movement of that existence's finger for Luo Fan to die, never to be reincarnated. And if an existence with Tai true number met an existence with Tai golden number, they would definitely not be able to withstand the latter's finger. As such, one could see the difference between Luo Fan and the ancient demon venerable, who was at least at Tai golden number. With such a huge difference in strength, the ancient demon venerable did not need to hide anything when facing Luo Fan, nor did he need to use any empty words to scare him. It was like a normal person facing an ant. Since this ancient archdevil venerable said this, it meant that this ancient archdevil venerable was thinking the same thing. Spiritual light flashed wildly in Luo Fan's mind. After a while, he seemed to have understood something and asked, since the demon venerable wants to use the primordial wasteland as the outer realm Tao field, he must have come with his true body. That's right. The ancient demon venerable looked at Luo Fan with an indifferent expression. I think, with the demon venerable's ability, it won't be that easy for his true body to come here. Otherwise, why would the demon venerable rely on the summoning of the heavenly demon to send a bit of power here? Luo Fan said again. That's right. The ancient demon venerable seemed to understand what Luo Fan wanted to say and said with a smile. Then, I wonder if the demon venerable can tell us how much time we have to prepare? Luo Fan did not care about the ancient demon venerable's expression and asked. Your potential is indeed not bad. You can see that I don't want to lie to you. Fine, if you can organize enough resistance, it will add a lot of fun to me. If I can't suppress you when you are fully prepared, I don't have the qualifications to refine this world into a Tao field. The ancient demon venerable smiled and said, the primordial world is 1.2 billion Kuan Kong from here. Even with my ability to cross this distance, it will take, according to the time unit of your world, it should be more than a yuan hui. Kuan Kong? Is this the unit of distance in the primal chaos? Luo Fan's heart relaxed, but at the same time, he had many doubts. Haha, you can understand it that way. The ancient demon venerable seemed to have heard an extremely funny thing and laughed loudly. Chapter 468. At this time, Luo Fan had already cultivated to the Tai true number and was extremely intelligent. With a single thought, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. In that instant, he roughly knew how stupid his question was. There was no time or space in the primal chaos, and it was in a mysterious state before the world was created. In such a mysterious state there was not even space, so how could there be distance? Without distance and distance, it was naturally impossible to describe it with a simple concept of space, and naturally there was no unit of distance. And since there was no concept of distance in the primal chaos, and the ancient devil venerable in front of him had used a certain amount of void to describe the distance between the two worlds, it meant that this void was definitely not simple, and might even contain some inconceivable mystery of the primal chaos. Understanding this, Luo Fan's expression returned to normal. No matter what kind of inconceivable mystery this void contained, to Luo Fan, it was not something he could set foot in at the moment. He could only record it in his heart. Even if this ancient devil venerable explained the mysteries contained in this void to him, he would definitely not be able to understand it. Furthermore, this ancient devil venerable was his enemy, a powerful existence that wanted to refine the entire great wasteland world into his foreign realm. The reason why he explained so much to him was because he disdained to lie to him, and only wanted to make the process of his conquest and refinement more interesting. How could he truly teach him like how he would teach a junior? It was precisely because he had completely grasped this bit of true meaning that Luo Fan was able to shut his mouth so rationally and no longer dwell on the matter of what kind of existence the void was. With a flash of inspiration, he asked indifferently, "The distance between the primal chaos world and the great wasteland world is 1.2 billion void, then how much is the distance between the great Jili world and the great wasteland world? I wonder if the demon venerable can teach me." The ancient devil venerable was originally looking at Luo Fan with interest, as though he was waiting for Luo Fan to ask another stupid and funny question, but when he heard Luo Fan suddenly spit out the name of the great Jili world, his expression changed greatly. Even the pitch-black world above his head, which looked extremely small, but in fact contained an endless amount of existences, also fluctuated violently. With the eyesight of Luo Fan's body that was reborn from a drop of blood, he could even see billions of demons being born and destroyed in this world. After a long while, all these phenomena disappeared. The ancient devil venerable's expression also returned to normal. However, compared to before, there seemed to be a strange fear. The Ninely Great World is about 1 trillion nipples away from the primordial world, and about the same amount away from this world. At such a distance, how did you know of the existence of the Jili Great World? That ancient devil venerable seemed to be casually explaining before asking. With Luo Fan's wisdom, how could he not see the change in heaven ancient devil venerable's mentality? However, his mind did not produce any joy because of this, but instead became even more profound and gloomy. Even such an unbelievably powerful existence, upon hearing the name of the ancient devil venerable, would feel such fear. The power of the ancient devil venerable was evident. Compared to the threat that the ancient devil venerable posed to the great wilderness, what was the threat of the ancient devil venerable? I just happened to hear it. The light in Luo Fan's mind flickered, but his expression did not change in the slightest. The ancient devil venerable is the most powerful world among the 3,000 worlds in this chaotic region. Its power can suppress billions of void, which is why it is called the Great World. Compared to the ancient devil venerable, my ancient devil venerable is like comparing a roadside quagmire to a boundless ocean. Even though I have become a top devil venerable in the ancient devil venerable, I cannot help but feel fear in the face of such a colossus. For you to be able to hear the name of the ancient devil venerable in this newly established world, it seems that some great expert of the ancient devil venerable has taken a fancy to this world. Forget it, it's not wise to go against the ancient devil venerable for the sake of a foreign realm. The ancient devil venerable did not hide anything, nor did he try to cover up his emotions. He directly expressed the fear in his heart towards the ancient devil venerable. There was not the slightest shyness in his expression when he spoke of something shameful. Instead, he was extremely calm and confident. Even Luo Fan couldn't help but admire his bearing when he was facing off against the ancient devil venerable at this moment. The magnanimity of the demon venerable is something that Fan Xian finds difficult to achieve. Luo Fan admired him in his heart, but he did not hide anything just because the other party was his enemy at this time. Instead, he said directly. Hearing Luo Fan's words, the ancient devil venerable faintly smiled, and looked at Luo Fan with a hint of admiration. I was not wrong about you. To be able to face even the slightest feeling in your heart, you do indeed have the potential to become a venerable. In the future, you will definitely have the qualifications to face me on equal footing." The ancient devil venerable laughed. "You flatter me, demon venerable," Luo Fan replied indifferently. He was not surprised at all by the ancient devil venerable's praise. This was also natural. Luo Fan's heart was filled with boundless confidence. He had even set the goal of transcending Pangu, transcending the primordial era, obtaining eternity, and freely traveling through the primal chaos. Even the will that descended from the ninely great world did not make him lose confidence, not to mention that the ancient devil venerable in front of him was far inferior to that will. What the ancient devil venerable had said, ever since he had determined his cultivation goal, he did not have the slightest bit of doubt. To him, this sentence was merely a statement of a fact that was about to happen. What was there to be surprised about? The ancient devil venerable looked at Luo Fan's expression, and the admiration in his eyes grew even stronger. However, after a while, he shook his head and sighed. "Unfortunately, you are not fated to be with my devil Tao. What a pity, what a pity!" As the ancient devil venerable spoke, he raised his hand and pointed. The pitch-black world above his head suddenly trembled and sank down, directly swallowing the ancient devil venerable's body. "Demon venerable, save me!" At this moment, an indescribable voice rang out from the world of darkness. This voice was naturally not the ancient devil venerable's voice, but the Freedom Demon Master's voice. "The fate between us can only allow me to do this much. Don't worry, even though your body and soul have been completely burned away, your life essence still exists. In the future, you'll be able to reincarnate in the primordial world. Rest assured." The ancient devil venerable's voice rang out from the pitch-black world. "No, this way, all of my memories will disappear, and the person who will be reborn will not be me, but someone else. The demon venerable is merciful. The demon venerable is merciful." The Freedom Demon Master's voice became even more terrified, and there were even miserable howls mixed in. Chapter 469. In the endless darkness of the world of darkness, the figure of the ancient demon sovereign had undergone a huge change. Splitting into two, from a single heaven old devil venerable to a gigantic shadow of the heaven old devil venerable, as well as a humanoid light figure that was constantly changing. Although the human figure was only a shadow, it was incomparably vivid. It engraved all the details that a normal human figure should have, without missing a single detail. The moment Luo Fan saw the shadow, he knew that it was the true body of the Zizai Demon Lord. That was because when he saw the light, he naturally felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. It was as if the light in front of him was his own shadow. It was also Hong Jun's shadow. It was also Luo Fu's shadow. It was also the shadow of all living beings he had seen. Other than the Zizai Demon Lord, he could not think of any other living being that could possess such a mysterious and profound transformation. So this is the reason why the Zizai Demon Lord possesses such a strange ability. No wonder. Such a thought flashed through Luo Fan's mind. But very quickly, he shifted his attention to the powerful existence behind the Zizai Demon Lord. The appearance of the ancient demon sovereign was similar to the one Luo Fan had seen before. It could be said to be identical. However, the auras emitted by the two had undergone an earth-shattering change. Although the ancient demon sovereign looked like he was facing a supreme great Tao. But if one took a closer look, they would feel that his entire body was extremely ordinary, as if he was just a powerless mortal. However, the current ancient demon sovereign gave off an even stronger feeling of facing a supreme great Tao. Furthermore, his entire body was exuding an extraordinary aura. It was as if the undulation of his skin, the fluttering of his hair, the trembling of his skin, and the trembling of his hands and feet were all evolving into a supreme law that could develop thousands of peerless abilities. At this time, the ancient devil venerable was hovering above the head of the Zizai Demon Master. Although he was about the same size as the Zizai Demon Master, and was not as eye-catching as the Zizai Demon Master at first glance, as long as one looked carefully, one would realize that the ancient devil venerable was like a gigantic deity that shrouded the heaven and earth, comparable to a pillar that supported the heavens. It floated high in the sky, its might suppressing the entire world. Under its illumination, the Zizai Demon Master seemed as tiny as an ant. "I am not me is me." The ancient devil sovereign's expression was indifferent as he raised his hand and said. As he did this, the Freedom Demon Master seemed to have gained enlightenment. His entire body was suddenly ignited with a pitch-black flame. This kind of flame did not seem to be hot at all. It was like the most ordinary of lights and shadows. It even made people want to touch this strange flame. However, Zizai Demon King, who was enveloped by the flames, was howling miserably. This kind of mournful howl had already lost the feeling that the Demon Master had when he spoke, as if he could penetrate the depths of one's heart. What was contained in it was only the fear and panic contained in his own heart. This kind of mournful howl was distributed normally. At the beginning, it became stronger and more terrified. After reaching its peak, it began to gradually weaken, and so did the fear. In the end, when the Freedom Demon Master was burned by the black flames into a colorless and transparent image that resembled a small heart, the voice that came from within had completely disappeared. The entire heart was only emitting a natural, calm, and pure feeling. It looked like a supreme existence that had just been born and had just taken shape. "So that's how it is." Luo Fan's expression finally changed when he saw this. What the ancient devil sovereign was doing was clearly using the black flames to completely refine the Freedom Demon Master. He had even raised all of the Freedom Demon Master's abilities, techniques, and abilities to the peak, turning them into the purest, strongest, and purest demon heart. This demon heart was even more supreme than the great Freedom Supreme Heaven and Earth Demon Heart that the Freedom Demon Master had cultivated with the help of the crystal. After refining the entire Freedom Demon Master into such a demon heart, the ancient Devil Lord casually waved his hand, and the demon heart turned into a ray of light that rushed into his body, replacing the position of his original heart. The moment the heart entered his body, the ancient Devil Sovereign's body suddenly felt a sense of reality that he did not have before. This feeling of reality came so suddenly, and it was so mysterious. Before this feeling of reality appeared, Luo Fan did not feel that this ancient Devil Sovereign was fake at all, and did not feel that this ancient Devil Sovereign's body was unreal at all. However, when this feeling of reality suddenly appeared, he truly felt that the current ancient Devil Sovereign was real, and only then did he truly have something to rely on. After the feeling of reality appeared, the heaven-old Devil Sovereign turned his head and smiled at the direction Luo Fan was looking at. His eyes reflected Luo Fan's face, which had a slight change in expression. When Luo Fan saw the actions of the ancient Devil Sovereign, he knew that the reason he was able to see the changes in the ancient Devil Sovereign in the world of darkness was not because he was lucky, but because the ancient Devil Sovereign had done it on purpose. Understanding this, Luo Fan came to a sudden realization. All of the actions of the ancient Devil Sovereign were replayed in his mind. Bit by bit, even the slightest change was magnified and slowed down by hundreds of millions of times. As a result, everything appeared in his mind, as if he was once again there. Previously, when he saw it, he only felt that the movements of the ancient Devil Sovereign were so natural and mysterious, but now that he had slowed it down and observed it carefully, he realized that the movements of the ancient Devil Sovereign actually hid so many truths of the universe and the mysteries of the Great Tao. Every movement of the ancient Devil Sovereign contained countless profound mysteries. With just a thought, Luo Fan could comprehend all kinds of divine ability techniques that were different from the rules and laws of the Great Wasteland world. Although these divine ability techniques were different from the rules and laws of the Great Wasteland world, they seemed to be in line with some deeper and more profound mysteries, allowing Luo Fan to possess all kinds of power that he originally needed to rely on other more complicated technique. Many thanks to the Devil Sovereign for bestowing the technique. After clearly seeing the mysteries of the various movements that appeared in his mind, Luo Fan bowed and said. The ancient Devil Sovereign laughed and did not reply. With a shake of his body, the entire world of darkness condensed into a thread of light. With a slight sway, it disappeared into the void where there was no time and no space. Seeing the ancient Devil Sovereign leave, Luo Fan sighed. The actions of the ancient Devil Sovereign were obviously done for him to see. He knew very well what it was for, but he had no choice but to accept it. Chapter 470. Although the Great Freedom magic was created by the Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Lord using endless energy and relying on the supreme power of the Great Tao of the Great Desolate World, it was not taught by the ancient Devil Venerable. Originally, it should have nothing to do with the Heaven Ancient Devil Venerable, but this Great Freedom magic, to a certain extent, matched the Tao that the Heaven Ancient Devil Venerable cultivated, and thus, by borrowing the power of some incomparably mysterious and profound channel, it crossed 200 million? It allowed cultivators who had cultivated the Great Freedom magic to a certain extent to be able to communicate with him. And he responded to this communication out of a moment of curiosity, which caused the Great Freedom magic to be connected to him in a certain way. If it was only for beings at the level of Luo Fan, or even the even stronger Ancient Devil Venerable, this kind of hidden connection was nothing, and there was no need for the Ancient Devil Venerable to worry. But from the performance of the Ancient Devil Venerable, towards the supreme existence of the Ninely Great World, the fear in his heart made him not dare to speak disrespectfully. From this, one could see how incredible the power of the supreme existence of the Ninely Great World was. To an existence with that kind of supreme power, the subtle and obscure connection between the ancient Devil Venerable and the Great Freedom magic was as clear as looking at the lines on the palm, and there was no possibility of hiding it. The ancient Devil Venerable's current divine ability was so vast that it had reached a level that even Luo Fan could not understand. To be able to cultivate such a divine ability, there was no need to mention how many fortuitous encounters, how many life and death risks, and how many great opportunities. With so many experiences, and being able to cultivate such a divine ability, there was no doubt about his cautiousness. Even if this obscure connection did not necessarily endanger him, he was not willing to take that little bit of risk, not to mention that the price of solving this little bit of danger was to impart some principles to a being that he somewhat admired. Luo Fan was intelligent, with a thought, although he did not know what was going on, he had already seen through the true meaning of the ancient Devil Venerable. However, he had no choice but to do as the ancient Devil Venerable had predicted. This was because the threat of the Great Freedom magic to the Great Desolate World was simply too great. The Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Lord could only say that as long as any living being in this world practiced the Great Freedom magic, it was highly possible for him to be reborn, no matter how many times he was killed. No matter how powerful Luo Fan's divine ability was, at least it was within the scope of Luo Fan's current understanding. If the vast Freedom Demon Master was left alive, it would be equivalent to leaving behind a huge hidden danger for the untainted land. If this hidden danger were to erupt in the future, it would be another great calamity for the untainted land. Letting out a long sigh, Luo Fan steadied his emotions. The frustration of having to do as his opponent had completely vanished. Shaking his head, with a single thought, the body formed by the blood drop rebirth slowly disintegrated. All the power contained in the body turned into a faintly discernible existence, shrinking inward in an extremely mysterious and bizarre way. As this power shrank, the substance that made up his body also shrank. The entire process was incomparably complicated, abstruse, and bizarre. After an unknown period of time, Luo Fan's entire body had actually transformed into a pitch-black and shiny strand of hair, which seemed to contain infinite power and power. After this strand of hair appeared, It shook slightly and tore open the boundless, timeless, and spaceless void. It directly passed through an incomparably mysterious location into the untainted land and appeared in front of Luo Fan's main body, which was in a mysterious location in the endless starry sky. Luo Fan casually waved his hand, and the strand of hair retracted and stuck to his head again. It was as if it had never been broken. He had a complete understanding of everything that the body that had been reborn from a drop of blood had experienced through an incomparably mysterious and abstruse channel. Even though he was an enemy, he could not help but feel a sense of admiration for the ancient Devil Lord. It was not just because the power of his divine ability had reached an unimaginable level, but most importantly, it was because of his carefree aura. Although he had the intention to follow the departure of the ancient Devil Lord, it was just as he had expected. The ability of the ancient Devil Lord was unbelievable. The entire process of his departure was mysterious and unimaginable. Even though he had seen every process and every detail with his own eyes, he could not figure out how he had left or which direction he had gone. Even if he wanted to track him, he lacked the strength. The ninely great world is actually so powerful. It seems that after this great calamity, the peace of the primordial world will not be as long as I imagined. This thought flashed through Luo Fan's mind. This thought made Luo Fan feel a little heavy, but at the same time, he felt a little excited. The heart of living beings was like this. They yearned for peace, but when it was truly peaceful, it was difficult to accept. The more powerful a living being was, the more it was like this. After such a heavy and excited feeling, Luo Fan suppressed this matter in the depths of his soul and turned his attention to the great tribulation of the world in front of him. At this moment, the primordial world was constantly changing. The embryonic forms of the world that were scattered throughout the primordial world were still continuously absorbing the endless essence energy of the world. They were continuously absorbing the essence energy into the embryonic form of the world, allowing the essence energy to continuously promote the evolution of the embryonic form of the world according to some inconceivable mystery. As the embryonic forms of the world evolved, the supreme great Tao hidden in the world continued to speed up. The faintly discernible tremors of the entire primordial world also became more and more intense, and more obvious. Luo Fan deliberately threw himself into the embryonic form of the world, and the interior of the limitless palace was also undergoing the same drastic changes. The embryonic forms of the 2,999 minor kiliocosms were evolving at a speed that was almost at the same speed as the embryonic form of the outside world. The progress that would have taken hundreds of millions of years to cross was compressed into a distance that could be calculated in days. At the same time, the countless heavenly demons in the entire world also collapsed at an unimaginable speed, turning into endless flesh and blood that scattered in all directions. They then fused into the void, fused into the earth, and similarly, used another method to promote the changes in the primordial world. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The various abnormal developments in the primordial world had also accumulated to a certain strange limit. A strange limit that was about to undergo a huge change, which meant that the great tribulation of the primordial world was about to pass. Chapter 471. The number of otherworldly demons that had invaded the primitive world this time was extremely large. There were trillions of them. Luo Fan had used the mysterious power of the Yellow Springs network to pull their souls into the virtual world to fight against billions of demon-killing cultivators. Although the demon-killing cultivators had the home advantage, and had an unimaginable understanding of the otherworldly demons' weaknesses due to their tens of thousands of years of training, they had countless methods to deal with them. However, the difference in numbers between the demon-killing cultivators and the otherworldly demons was too great. Therefore, even though they had so many advantages, it was almost impossible to clear all the otherworldly demons in the primordial world without dozens of years. Although the atmosphere of the entire primordial world had changed in the past 3 years, the otherworldly demons that existed in the primordial world were still densely packed. It would still take a long time to clear them out. At this moment, the Khanate gods who had not entered the virtual world and survived to guard the primordial world, they had long given up on exterminating the otherworldly demons. After all, the primordial world was too vast. Given their cultivation levels, which were at least at the perfected immortal realm after being strengthened by the Star Beast Jade Pendant, it would normally be impossible for them to cross the areas they were guarding to other areas without dozens of years. It was obvious that dozens of years were long enough for the demon-killing cultivators in the virtual world to wipe out all the otherworldly demons. Clearly, the gains did not make up for the losses. Therefore, the thousands of Khanate gods, with the help of the responsibility that Luo Fan had given them back then, they could teleport at will in their respective areas. After completely wiping out the otherworldly demons in their respective areas, they returned to their respective cultivation places and quietly absorbed the gains from the Great Tribulation of Heaven and Earth. The Great Tribulation of Heaven and Earth was a huge tribulation. However, if they survived it, they would also reap great rewards, be it for the world or for the Khanate gods. It was the same for all of them. These Khanate gods? They originally had a subtle and mysterious connection with the primordial world. They were naturally more sensitive to such changes. After surviving the Great Tribulation, they realized that their connection with the entire primordial world seemed to have become closer. It was as if they could feel that the supreme great Tao that could only be blurry, vague, and even unconfirmed had become unprecedentedly obvious and clear. Everything he had seen and experienced in the Great Tribulation seemed to be fermenting, gradually releasing a mellow aroma of wine, producing an intoxicating effect. With such a rare opportunity, how could there be any innate gods to waste it? Although the number of otherworldly demons was already extremely large and did not seem to have changed much compared to 3 years ago, it did not mean that the changes in the primordial world would be the same as the number of otherworldly demons. There were not many changes compared to 3 years ago. In fact, 3 years later, at this moment, the billions of embryonic forms of the primordial world that originally existed had evolved to the extreme. Compared to devouring hundreds of thousands of outer realm worlds, the number of otherworldly demons that were almost countless were insignificant. How could they lead the huge changes in the entire primordial world? After the embryonic form of the 1 billion square meters evolved to the extreme, it had already grown into a complete world of 1 billion square meters. These worlds were attached to the void of the primordial world. They were faintly discernible, and faintly discernible. They were like paintings that had fused with the void. They were abnormally mysterious and extremely profound. The relationship between these worlds and the primordial world was like the relationship between a bag attached to it and the clothes. They formed a separate but unified whole. The laws of the world were based on the primordial world. They had a deep and close connection with the primordial world. At the same time, they had a subtle and mysterious difference with the laws of the primordial world. However, the world itself was extremely complete. If it was separated, any world could exist independently. It could even give birth to all sorts of unbelievable living beings. It could create all sorts of innate gods similar to the primordial world. Such an existence, according to the essence of the 1 billion square meters, it was even more perfect than the outer realm of its predecessor. Of course, the 1 billion square meters was formed after the primordial world devoured hundreds of thousands of outer realm worlds. Although it relied on the unfathomable power of the supreme great Tao of the primordial world to produce such a mysterious and profound change, in the past 3 years, Luo Fan had wholeheartedly sensed the changes in the entire primordial world. The most important thing was how the world had evolved from an embryonic form to a complete world. As a result, Every single detail of the evolution of the world over 1 billion square kilometers was absorbed into Luo Fan's mind without missing a single detail. Every single origin of spacetime and the mysteries of the Great Path involved constantly impacted the way of spacetime evolution that Luo Fan had comprehended since he started cultivating. This impact caused Luo Fan's gains in the past 3 years to be comparable to any other innate god in the primordial world. His gains were greater. Moreover, the difference between the two periods was like the difference between heaven and earth. The other innate gods? At most, he had comprehended a few mystical abilities and a few techniques. At most, he had seen the direction of the golden immortal realm. However, Luo Fan's gains allowed him to see the true Tai true number. He felt that the shackles that prevented him from truly achieving the Tai true number had been completely eliminated by him. It was as if he could really step over the realm in front of him at any time and step into the incredible realm of Tai true number. Although the half-step Tai true number and the Tai true number seemed to be only one step apart, the difference between the two was even greater than the difference between a living being who had never cultivated and a living being who had attained the Tai Dao fruit. According to Luo Fan's expectations, even if he had already achieved the half-step Tai true number and broken through the biggest bottleneck, he would still need to spend a long time to accumulate wisdom, strength, and mystical abilities before he could remove the word half-step. Now that he had only spent 3 years, he was able to remove it in a short period of time. That was equivalent to shrinking his cultivation for an unknown period of time. Naturally, compared to any innate god, his gains were huge. To Luo Fan, who was under heavy pressure from the Jili Great World, the progress in his cultivation made his mind relax to a certain extent. Compared to this, the changes that happened to the Void Wuji Palace, which had evolved with the embryonic form of 1 billion square worlds, seemed to have become secondary. After 3 years of evolution, the everlasting Void Palace's inner 2,999 embryonic minor kiliocosms had truly developed into 2,999 complete minor kiliocosms. It had also truly completed the 3,000 minor kiliocosms, allowing the everlasting Void Palace to finally reach the initial stage and become 10,000 times more perfect than before. Chapter 472. The 3,000 minor kiliocosms condensed into one, as if they were born naturally and flawlessly. The rules and natural great Tao of each minor kiliocosm were slightly weaker than those of other minor kiliocosms, but the difference could not be ignored at all. With all these differences, there was some kind of extremely mysterious and profound existence that was constantly circulating in the 3,000 minor kiliocosm. In the whole process of this circulation, every minor kiliocosm was undergoing some extremely weak changes. This weak change made all the minor kiliocosms undergo some incredible and mysterious growth, becoming more and more perfect and stable. Seeing that the evolution of the primordial world had reached a certain limit, an inexplicable enlightenment appeared in Luo Fan's mind. It's time. With a slight thought, the Void Wuji Palace turned into a yellow light and rushed out of the embryonic world. In an instant, it crossed hundreds of millions of miles and came to an extremely mysterious position in the endless starry sky. It directly appeared in front of Luo Fan. After the yellow light appeared in front of Luo Fan, it condensed and turned into the appearance of the Void Wuji Palace again. However, compared to the Void Wuji Palace he saw last time, the square palace in front of Luo Fan had undergone some changes. Its general appearance did not change, but it had a kind of aura that he did not have before. It was a perfect aura like the Great Tao. The Void Wuji Palace floated in front of Luo Fan and naturally resonated with the entire primordial world. It seemed to be some kind of world that was formed when the world was created. Luo Fan looked at the Void Wuji Palace that had undergone such a mysterious change. He thought of something and shouted softly, "Where is the boy?" With this shout, A sound like the morning bell and evening drum suddenly came from the Void Wuji Palace. Then, the Void Wuji Palace became blurry. After the blur, a man appeared in front of Luo Fan. The man's appearance and figure were exactly the same as the Wuji boy he met last time. However, there was an additional innate god aura around him. Although this innate aura was so weak that even someone as sharp as Luo Fan wouldn't be able to sense it, it was still fundamentally different from the past, allowing the essence of his life to be improved. After Wuji boy appeared, he bowed to Luo Fan and said, "Wuji thanks Master for your kindness." Luo Fan nodded and said, "There's no need to say more about this matter. Now that you have obtained the endless opportunities of the primordial world, I believe you can fuse with the primordial world and turn it into a real world, right?" "That's right," Limitless Child said. "Then let's begin." Luo Fan smiled and said. Wuji boy bowed. His body shook slightly, and he returned to the square palace. However, this time, the square palace was not the same as before. It was magnified millions of times, like a huge mountain that was hundreds of thousands of zhang tall. When any object was magnified to a certain extent, it would become shocking and filled with a power that could shake one's soul. What's more, the Void Wuji Palace itself was extraordinary. It contained countless mini-kiliocosms and medium kiliocosms. When it was magnified to millions of zhang tall, the shock even made Luo Fan feel that he had become small. Of course, this feeling was just an illusion to Luo Fan. The everlasting Void Palace was refined by him from the simplest material to its current level. All the changes within the treasure were incomparably clear to him. It was like looking at the lines on his palm. How could he feel small just because of the changes in the treasure? Seeing that the Void Wuji Palace had become like this, Luo Fan pointed casually. Boundless mysterious power gathered in the void. The supreme great Tao that was hidden in the darkness and could only be vaguely sensed by living beings with high cultivation seemed to have descended at this moment and enveloped the entire Wuji Void Palace, causing the entire Wuji Void Palace to faintly resonate with the miniature of the primordial world below, forming an extremely mysterious resonance. It was as if the two of them were gradually merging into one. Golden and silver light flowed slowly in Luo Fan's eyes. It seemed to hide the endless world, the endless universe, and the endless mysteries. Every change in the Void Wuji Palace was seen by him. Even the slightest movement of Yuan Qi could not escape his eyes. The ability to synchronize eyes and ears allowed him to receive information far beyond what he could see with his eyes. Therefore, even if the mysteries were hidden behind layers of barriers, even the true eyes of sun and moon could not see them, they could not escape his senses. It was precisely because of this convenience that Luo Fan was able to control all the changes. The entire Void Wuji Palace trembled in sync with the primordial world. When the two vibrated at the same time and produced the strongest resonance, the aura emitted by the limitless Void Palace suddenly changed. In an instant, it felt as if it had disappeared in front of Luo Fan. If he closed his eyes, he would not even be able to sense its existence. As expected, Luo Fan smiled when he saw this. At this moment, the huge palace was still in front of him. It was still the same square palace and looked no different from before. The reason why he had the strange feeling of disappearing in front of him was because at this moment, the entire square palace had already merged with the primordial world. From a certain point of view, it had already become a part of the primordial world. The primordial world was vast and almost infinite. In such a vast world, the aura emitted from various locations was weak to the point that it was almost undetectable. However, the strength of the aura had reached a level that was beyond the imagination of all living beings. Such a terrifying and vast aura, no matter how profound a Dharma treasure was, it could not be compared to such a terrifying and vast aura. This difference in aura caused the Void Wuji Palace and the primordial world to merge into one to a certain extent. The aura on its body was completely covered by the aura of the primordial world. If it was not for a solar eclipse, it would be difficult to see the brilliant solar prominence above the sun. That was why after the void Wuji Palace merged with the primordial world, its aura seemed to have completely disappeared and could no longer be detected. At this moment, the primordial world was undergoing a huge change. The moment the void Wuji Palace left the embryonic form of the world that had been occupied by the void Wuji Palace for 3 years lost all its shackles and finally underwent the same change as the other billions of embryonic forms of the world. In the blink of an eye, the embryonic form of the world bloomed like a flower bud and instantly extended. The embryonic form of the world was instantly destroyed. The earth, water, fire, and wind surged, yin and yang intertwined, and all living things were born. In the blink of an eye, an incomparably complete world that was even more complete, larger, and more stable than the other billions of worlds appeared. At the same time, it was even more mysterious. The supreme great Tao of the primordial world contained unimaginable mysteries. The embryonic form of the world was destined to evolve into a real world. In these 3 years, the endless primordial energy and all sorts of mysteries that the primordial world had injected into the embryonic form of the world were all absorbed by the void Wuji Palace. Not a single trace could be used by the embryonic form of the world, preventing it from evolving into a real world. However, the embryonic form of the world still had to evolve into a real world. This was something that was destined by the supreme great Tao of the primordial world. Therefore, this caused the primordial world to inject all sorts of primordial energy and mysterious existences into the embryonic form of the world to increase. After the void Wuji Palace left the embryonic form of the world, it was impossible for it to stop immediately. As a result, the moment the infinite void palace left the embryonic form of the world, the endless origin energy and the mysterious existence instantly pushed the embryonic form of the world to its limit. The process of it breaking through its shackles and evolving into a complete world, which would normally take 3 years like the other embryonic forms of the world, was compressed into an instant. Moreover, because of the large amount of primordial energy and mysterious existences, this world was more complete, more vast, and more stable than the other billions of worlds. The moment this world was formed, the embryonic form of the entire primordial world had completely evolved into a complete world. The number had reached 296 billion yuan, which was exactly the number of 10,000 yuan. However, it was in line with some inexplicable mysterious principle. In the blink of an eye, the 296 billion square feet of worlds each spewed out an endless mysterious aura. These mysterious auras were all different. Each aura had a slight but obvious difference from the auras that spewed out from the other world. At this moment, if the 296 billion yuan auras were combined together, they would form an extremely pure and invincible aura that was similar to the connate inextinguishable spirit light. However, although the 296 billion yuan were all in the primordial world, they were distributed over an extremely wide area. Even the connate gods of the perfected immortal realm? Without tens of thousands of years, it would be impossible to travel through all of them. Before the numerous auras could spread to the place where they came into contact with each other, they would naturally scatter into the endless primordial energy in the void. Naturally, it would be impossible for them to fuse and interweave together to form an aura similar to the connate inextinguishable spirit light. Chapter 473. The 296 billion strands of aura released by the many worlds could not come into contact with each other, but they had already appeared in the primordial world, after all. At that moment, the Wuji Palace in front of Luo Fan formed an extremely mysterious and profound connection with the entire primordial world. As a result, the moment the 296 billion strands of aura appeared, the Wuji Palace in front of Luo Fan naturally absorbed a strand of the aura released by each world. Through some mysterious and profound channel, it gathered them around itself and naturally formed a cloud, enveloping the entire Wuji Palace. Although each world only absorbed a strand of the aura, the 296 billion strands added together was enough to envelop the entire Wuji Palace tightly. When the aura came into contact with each other, it naturally began to undergo an extremely profound change under the effect of the Supreme Great Tao. It produced an indescribable fusion. At the same time as the aura fused, waves of aura seemed to seep out from within the Wuji Palace as well. They came into contact with the 296 billion strands of aura, as if they were exchanging something. The speed at which the aura fused was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, only 648 million strands were left. They were double the size of before, and at the same time, the indistinct imperishable will that had existed before became slightly clearer. In the blink of an eye, the amount of aura decreased again. The imperishable will became even clearer. Just like that, it only took a few breaths. The aura formed by the 296 billion strands of aura that enveloped the Wuji Palace had already fused into a strand of aura the size of a strand of hair. This aura gave off an aura of eternal indestructibility. As it stood in the air, it was as if it had existed since the beginning of time, and it would continue to exist forever. Just sensing this aura, Luo Fan's mind flashed with countless spiritual lights, as if he had comprehended some kind of indestructible true intent. However, this was only an aura after all. Moreover, the will of indestructibility within this aura was extremely different from the truly indestructible connate spiritual aura. As a result, although Luo Fan could vaguely comprehend the true meaning of indestructibility from it, he only vaguely comprehended it. If he wanted to truly transform it into some kind of technique or state of Tao, he was still far from it. Although Luo Fan felt that he was unable to comprehend the true imperishable realm from it, he didn't feel disappointed. With a point of his finger, the aura that gushed out from the limitless void palace instantly wrapped around the undying aura and pulled it into the limitless void palace. Within the limitless void palace, there was a dimensional realm and 3,000 complete minor kiliocosms. This had already formed a rather complete system, and it had truly completed the first level of the 3,000 worlds technique. Compared to the previous 2,999 worlds that were still in their embryonic form, it had undergone a tremendous change, and its sturdiness had increased by countless times. At this moment, the undying aura poured into the 3,000 minor kiliocosms, and the dimensional realm were like gears that had been activated. They began to operate in an incomparably mysterious and profound manner. Every minor kiliocosm emitted an aura that conformed with some inconceivable truth. Together with the undying aura, it passed through the other minor kiliocosms and finally connected the 3,000 minor kiliocosms and the dimensional realm together. When the minor kiliocosms and the dimensional realm became one, they were also infected with the will of indestructibility from the undying aura. These 3,000 minor kiliocosms and dimensional realms were originally refined according to the 3,000 worlds technique. They were originally one, complementing each other, transforming each other, and supporting each other. But in the end, this was only the first level of this technique. There were still many gaps between the 3,000 minor kiliocosms and the dimensional realm, so they couldn't perfectly form a whole. But at this time, under the undying aura, these gaps finally disappeared. These 3,000 minor kiliocosms and the dimensional realm truly formed an inseparable whole. It was like a huge world composed of 3,000 minor kiliocosms and one dimensional realm. In an instant, the entire limitless void palace disintegrated. The physical existence of the limitless void palace fused with the void. In the endless starry sky, an incomparably mysterious area was formed. It seemed to be infinitely large, but also the size of the palace itself. Inside this area, most of it was pitch black. Only near the center of the area were 3,001 bright spots. Each of them emitted a mysterious and unfathomable light that couldn't be described with words. These 3001 lights were like 3001 completely different light. They complemented each other, but each contained a mysterious and unparalleled divine light. These stars were the 3000 minor kiliocosms and one-dimensional realm. And this entire area was the scene that the limitless Void Palace had evolved into. The pitch-black area near the center of the star was the gap left for the countless minor kiliocosms, dimensional realms, and great kiliocosms. Although it looked pitch-black, it wasn't a void. In fact, there was a hidden ocean that contained infinite power, incomparably tyrannical, infinite destructive power, and infinite vitality, a sea of thunder. In the void, an aura seeped out of nowhere and entered the area formed by the limitless Void Palace, directly enveloping the entire area that the Sea of Lightning had enveloped. The Sea of Lightning surged, causing earthy yellow waves to appear out of nowhere in the void from time to time, before quickly surging into the endless void. These auras were attached to the already existing immortal aura, constantly strengthening it, making the immortal aura even more abundant in the area formed by the everlasting Void Palace. At the same time, an aura continuously seeped out of the 3001 specks of light and directly seeped into the void. They passed through an extremely mysterious channel and entered an unknown place. It's finally done. Looking at this scene, Luo Fan lightly smiled. He raised his foot and stepped into the void, directly stepping into the area formed by the everlasting palace. When he crossed the boundary formed by the palace, it was as if he had crossed a space-time barrier and entered a completely different space-time. It was as if the surrounding time and space had suddenly undergone an earth-shattering change. He raised his eyes and looked around. Was there still a void around him? Around it was a boundless, surging sea of earth-yellow lightning that was constantly being stirred up by the undying aura that flowed in from the outside world. Chapter 474. The Sea of Lightning contained boundless power. Every surge of the sea seemed to contain enough power to shake the void and destroy the world. This Sea of Lightning was not empty. At the center of this Sea of Lightning, which was the location of the 3001 star-like bright spots, there were 3001 island-like existences standing there. The structure of the 3001 islands was very mysterious. Among them, there were 3000 islands that revolved around an even larger island like 3000 indispensable fulcrums. The larger island that surpassed the other 3000 islands was like the defense of the 3000 islands. Although it was wrapped in the center of the 3000 islands, it gave off a mysterious feeling as if it was wrapping around the 3000 islands. The changes that occurred in the limitless Void Palace were all under Luo Fan's control. Naturally, he didn't have the slightest doubt about these changes. With a thought, he took a step forward and instantly traversed billions of kilometers. He arrived at the center of the boundless Sea of Lightning, outside the 3001 islands. When he got closer, Luo Fan could see the true appearance of the islands. These islands were naturally not real islands. In reality, each island was covered by a space-time barrier and isolated mysterious existences. Inside these existences, perhaps there really was an island, perhaps it was just a cave abode, perhaps it was just an object, or even a boundless world. The appearance of the island was just a natural scene that was formed by the lightning ocean. It was like a huge iceberg. Even if it was not an island, if it floated on the sea, it would naturally look like an island. Above these 3001 islands was a strange hall that seemed to be boundless yet extremely narrow. This strange hall was the one that he had been in when he first entered the Infinite Void Palace. At this moment, the Infinite Void Palace had fused with the primordial world. The strange hall seemed even more majestic and grand. At the same time, it gave off a natural aura as if it had existed since ancient times and was a natural aura of the world. Luo Fan looked at the hall. With a thought, he was already in the hall. The palace seemed to be on the 3001st islands, but that was not the case. The relationship between the palace and the 3001st Islands was similar to the relationship between the 3001st Islands. There was no difference between up and down. Its location was determined by one's will. As the master of the entire Infinite Void Palace, Luo Fan only needed to think and he could enter it. When Luo Fan arrived at the palace, he saw the Limitless Boy waiting in the palace. Wuji Boy has already fused with the primordial world and communicated with the 296 billion square meters of world that appeared in the primordial world. He can obtain endless vitality from them at any time to strengthen himself. Seeing Luo Fan arrive, Wuji Boy bowed and reported. Hearing this, Luo Fan was happy. He nodded and smiled. That's good. You can go now. The Limitless Boy bowed again but did not speak. His body flickered and gradually disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had merged with the void, or merged with the hall, or merged with the boundless sea of lightning below. Luo Fan sensed the changes that had occurred in the entire Limitless Void Palace, and in an instant, his mind and intent unfolded. In that instant, he grasped even the slightest change that occurred when the entire Infinite Void Palace fused with the primordial world. The Infinite Void Palace was originally a grotto heaven treasure. This treasure was extremely powerful. It was a mysterious treasure that Luo Fan had refined when he had just achieved Tao. It contained all of Luo Fan's comprehension of cultivation and all of his proof of the supreme Tao. With this characteristic, the potential of the Infinite Void Palace was naturally immeasurable. However, the Infinite Void Palace wasn't without any shackles or weaknesses. In fact, the shackles and weaknesses were extremely obvious. They were so obvious that any living being could discover them if they paid a little attention. The shackles and weaknesses were the materials used to refine the Infinite Void Palace. The Infinite Void Palace was originally a magic treasure that Luo Fan had casually grabbed from the primordial world and refined from a piece of earth essence. After continuous refinement, continuous growth, and the addition of various other materials, it was finally formed. That piece of earth essence was naturally difficult to obtain in the future. It was enough to drive any cultivator crazy and cause endless bloodshed. However, in the primordial world, as long as one paid a little attention, one could scissor a material that was thousands of times more precious. With such a material as the foundation, no matter how many materials were added to the Infinite Void Palace and how many times it had been refined, it would definitely be more or less insufficient. It would become a shackle for it to advance further. The only way to change this situation was to completely change the nature of the Infinite Void Palace. It would transform from a magic treasure that was originally formed based on materials to a magic treasure that existed based on the void and the world. That was why there was this change. After the transformation of the Wuji Void Palace into the untainted world, all the material that made up the Wuji Void Palace had been decomposed by the void and transformed into a faintly discernible space-time barrier. This kind of space-time barrier existed between reality and illusion. It had unfathomable power and could even isolate space-time. If it could be refined into a physical body and used as the body of the Wuji Void Palace, then all the shackles and weaknesses of the Wuji Void Palace due to the lack of materials would naturally disappear. At that level, the toughness and strength of the Infinite Void Palace would be hundreds of millions of times greater than before. If the void of the untainted world was added to it, which could not be broken by brute force, then the Wuji Palace could even become an indestructible treasure. To a certain extent, it was close to a primordial spiritual treasure and had the characteristics of a primordial spiritual treasure. Of course, at this moment, the Infinite Void Palace had just been integrated into the primordial world. It had only just been transformed into a space-time barrier. It was unknown how long it would take to truly refine the space-time barrier into a physical existence. Under such circumstances, he could no longer separate the Limitless Void Palace from the primordial world. He could no longer bring the Limitless Void Palace around like before. Therefore, if Luo Fan really wanted to refine it into an indestructible treasure and give it the indestructible characteristic, he still needed billions of years to refine it. Luo Fan was well aware of the situation of the Infinite Void Palace. At this moment, he was in the palace, but he did not pay attention to the changes in the Infinite Void Palace. Instead, he was concerned about the situation of the 296 billion square feet of new world that was connected to the Infinite Void Palace. The 296 billion square feet of new world was in the period when the world had just been created. The rules of each world and the characteristics of the evolution of each world were being displayed in an extremely violent and chaotic way. At this moment, it was the best time to comprehend the many worlds. Chapter 475. At this moment, this palace was like a hub that connected countless space-time. It seemed like one could reach countless different worlds through this place. Just by standing in this palace, Luo Fan didn't need to search to be able to feel every process and every change that was taking place in the 296 billion square meters of new heaven and earth. Even though Luo Fan was a half-step primordial unity true number and an innate god who had completely broken the barrier between the half-step primordial unity true number and the primordial unity true number, the evolution of a heaven and earth and the level of energy involved in it, even though Luo Fan was now a half-step primordial unity true number and an innate god who had completely broken the barrier between the half-step primordial unity true number and the primordial unity true number, it couldn't even compare to 1/10,000th of it. With 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth combined into one, the drifting energies that were released almost at every moment were more than enough to create a primordial cultivator. As Luo Fan paid attention to the evolution of the numerous worlds, his body naturally withstood the cleansing of the Yuan Qi in the process. This kind of cleansing could not directly advance his cultivation realm, nor could it allow him to directly step into the primordial unity that required painstaking cultivation. But such a huge amount of energy, such a vast amount of energy, the evolution of heaven and earth, was branded in Luo Fan's mind and will like a brand. Then, through his mind, it interfered with his sea of consciousness, causing his sea of consciousness to gradually undergo some subtle changes. This subtle change was so mysterious and strange that it added a lot of innate aura to the sea of consciousness, which was originally very similar to the real world, as if it was naturally created and evolved into a real world. In fact, even the creatures that were originally condensed from Luo Fan's thoughts seemed to have gained a lot of autonomy, and were even more similar to real living beings. 296 billion. This was a huge number. In Luo Fan's previous world, the country's population was about the same, yet it could be called the world's most populous country. Amongst these worlds, even if a single world was only able to slightly allow Luo Fan to feel faint gains, when combined together, his gains would arrive at an unbelievable level. Thus, the appearance of such a situation at this moment was extremely normal. Luo Fan sensed the changes in the sea of consciousness, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He gradually closed his eyes and emptied his mind, allowing the evolution process of the 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth to be branded in his mind more easily. Just as Luo Fan was carefully sensing the 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth, another drastic change occurred in the primordial world. Or rather, it was the result of all the changes that had occurred before, and it was finally showing itself. The endless otherworldly demons that billions of demon-killing cultivators had spent 3 years to kill but had not killed many instantly exploded, turning into endless blood mist and flesh that spread out. Even though the primordial world was so vast, the moment the endless otherworldly demons exploded and turned into blood mist and flesh, it still turned pale red. It was as if the entire world was enveloped by a faint red mist. At the center of the explosion of the many otherworldly demons, it was as if a huge hole had been torn open in the void. endless red mist surged in from the hole outside the primordial world. The mist contained the endless mysteries of the outer realm. It had an indescribable replenishing effect on the primordial world. Even though the primordial world had obtained tens of thousands of outer realm worlds that were even more nourishing, the otherworldly demons were no longer of much use to it. However, the moment the otherworldly demons exploded into endless blood, mist, and flesh, the supreme great Tao hidden in the primordial world still moved strangely. The entire primordial world began to circulate, and through a mysterious and unimaginable method, it transformed the endless flesh and blood essence into the primordial world. In just a few breaths, the hundreds of millions of otherworldly demons had completely disappeared from the primordial world, as if they had never appeared before. On the primordial world, besides the traces that were left on the land that had been plundered by the heavenly devils, it was as if the heavenly devils had never appeared. At the same time, within the demon-killing domain in the virtual world, the many otherworldly demons that were fighting with the demon-killing cultivators let out shrill cries of pain, indignation, or realization. Then, they dissipated at the same time, turning into boundless soul power that merged with the entire demon-killing domain. The entire demon-killing domain shook violently. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it stabilized. The billions of stars and planets that had been destroyed in countless battles were condensed again under the effect of some mysterious law. They were even larger and more dazzling than before. After several years of battle, the void that had been shattered into countless fragments and became extremely messy with countless spatial cracks recovered in an instant. After recovering, the stability of the void continued to improve. After this change, it would no longer be possible for living beings to shatter the void in the past. After this transformation, even an innate god at the golden immortal realm would not be able to withstand it. They would probably be able to shake the void slightly and create some spatial cracks that were as thin as thread. The demon-killing cultivators in the demon-killing domain had the ability to resurrect at will. In the past few years of battle, it was naturally impossible for there to be any demon-killing cultivators who had died and left the battle. Of course, there were also demon-killing cultivators who had left the battle for various reasons. However, compared to the huge number of demon-killing cultivators, this was negligible. These demon-killing cultivators who were still in battle had been wholeheartedly focused on the battle. However, they suddenly realized that their opponents had instantly dissipated and disappeared without a trace. For a moment, almost 99% of the demon-killing cultivators could not react. They floated in the cosmic void in a daze, not knowing how to react. Only an extremely small portion, such as the heavenly sword supremacy, could react in an instant. It was precisely because they could react in time that they obtained benefits that were many times greater than the other demon-killing cultivators. This demon-killing domain was a part of the virtual world. Moreover, it was an extremely important part. Almost all of the mysteries of the virtual world were compressed into a part of it. Although it was only the mysteries of the virtual world compressed into it, it was still virtual. However, that was only true for existences at the level of Luofan. To these demon-killing cultivators who had billions of cultivation realms and could not compare to Luofan, this virtual world was real. It contained the laws of the world, the rules of judgment, the movement of the stars and the mysteries of the void. All of these contained countless principles that they could comprehend and improve their cultivation realms. Fighting in this demon-killing domain with such a quality, with Hong Jun and the others helping them fight and providing them with all sorts of conveniences, to these demon-killing cultivators, it was equivalent to using another method to demonstrate the principles of this virtual world to them and to help them comprehend it. At this moment, this huge increase in the demon-killing domain also magnified the originally obscure, subtle, and complicated principles of the virtual world that were hidden behind layers of mist. Chapter 476. The demon-killing cultivators who noticed the huge change in the demon-killing domain instantly gained a harvest that was more than what they had gained in the past tens of thousands of years. At that moment, almost every demon-killing cultivator who noticed the huge change in the demon-killing domain felt a surge of energy of different qualities and strengths surging from their bodies. All of them actually increased by at least one or more realms in their cultivation technique. There were even some demon-killing cultivators who directly increased their cultivation realm by a whole realm. Some who had never attained Tao became itinerant immortals who had attained Tao, and some who went from itinerant immortals to perfected immortals. Of course, there were very few of them. While the perfected immortal realm demon-killing cultivators also gained great benefits, the span of the perfected immortal realm was many times greater than that of the itinerant immortal realm. Yet, there were no perfected immortal realm demon-killing cultivators who could comprehend and reach the golden immortal realm. As the cultivation realms of the demon-killing cultivators increased, the power in the entire demon-killing domain changed greatly. The time that the demon-killing domain changed was extremely short. In just an instant it had completely calmed down. By the time the other demonic-killing realm cultivators reacted in time, the entire demonic-killing realm had already returned to its previous stable state. Moreover, it was much more stable than before. If they wanted to comprehend some principles that would be beneficial to their cultivation and cultivation realm, the difficulty would be several times greater than before the change. Sensing the changes in the surroundings, and seeing the changes in the cultivation realms of the few demon-killing cultivators, these demon-killing cultivators naturally felt regretful. However, the demon-killing cultivators who were able to fight to the last moment in the demon-killing domain would definitely have reached an extremely high level by now even if their mental fortitude was lacking. Thus, it was extremely rare for them to feel resentment or jealousy because of this completely different experience. Instead, many demon-killing cultivators felt their spirits improve due to the huge difference in strength. Their Tao heart realm improved greatly because of this. It could be said that they had gained something else. Hong Jun, Luo Fu, and the others had done their best to maintain the normal operation of the entire demon-killing domain for the past 3 years. They were constantly busy and did not relax just because the overall situation had been decided. After all, there were trillions of otherworldly demons in the demon-killing domain. Among the trillions of extraterrestrial devils, there would naturally be some geniuses with extraordinary aptitudes. Although the entire demon-killing domain was perfect, it was only a domain after all. In the process of cooperating with so many demon-killing cultivators to kill demons, there would naturally be some traces that would be detected by these talented otherworldly demons. If Hong Jun, Luo Fu, and company had not checked and filled in the gaps in these 3 years, even if this demon-killing domain had not been broken through, there would definitely be a large number of otherworldly demons that would escape this demon-killing domain and enter the vast virtual world outside. At that time, the impact on the many living beings of the primordial world would be secondary. The most troublesome thing was that the many otherworldly demons might be hidden among the endless living beings of the primordial world. It would be difficult to find them, and they would become hidden dangers in the primordial world. At that moment, all the otherworldly demons were suddenly killed by a mysterious power. Hong Jun and the others could not help but relax. They were Luo Fan's subordinates. The various great Tao techniques that Luo Fan had imparted to them were all more mysterious than the principles revealed in the demon-killing domain. Therefore, although the demon-killing domain had undergone such a huge change and could allow so many demon-killing cultivators to break through, to them, it was only a way to verify what they had learned. They did not gain as much as they had imagined. The great calamity is over. Hong Jun was in the middle of the demon-killing domain. He opened his eyes, and his expression was a little strange. I didn't expect that the great calamity would be over just like that. At that moment, Luo Fu's figure slowly appeared beside Hong Jun. He looked a little relaxed but also a little doubtful. So second senior brother also feels this way. I thought that I was the only one who felt this way. At that moment, Lei Jiuxiao also appeared beside him. Following that, Guangpu, Luo Chunyang, Gu Ling, Lin Tiannan, and the others appeared one after another. In a short while, the center of the entire demon-killing domain was gathered with Luo Fan's subordinates. Second junior brother, sixth junior brother, you are very wrong to think that way. Hong Jun waited for everyone to arrive before speaking. Eldest senior brother, please speak, Luo Fu said hurriedly. The scope of this great calamity of heaven and earth is vast and dangerous. It is beyond the imagination of all living beings. We see that it is very easy for us to pass this calamity in just a few years. It seems very simple and not dangerous. However, how can we not see how much preparation Master has made behind this ease and how many backups he has set up? Everything that we have experienced is only the easiest part of this great calamity. We must not underestimate the dangers of the great calamity because we are relaxed. Hong Jun did not hide anything and said directly. Hearing Hong Jun's words, Luo Fu, Guangpu, and the others' expressions changed slightly. The ease and doubt that they had felt previously had completely disappeared in an instant. They even broke out in cold sweat, which they had not seen for many years, or perhaps even never seen in the past. At this moment, with Hong Jun's reminder, they finally recalled what their master and their father had been thinking, saying, and doing for the past tens of thousands of years. They also recalled the existence of this virtual world, the existence of the many demon-killing cultivators, the hundreds of thousands of innate gods, the existence of the various mystical abilities that they and the others had cultivated. Weren't all of these preparations for the great calamity of heaven and earth in the past few years? Thinking that they had unknowingly magnified their actions and unknowingly increased their own importance, they could not help but break out in a cold sweat and feel ashamed. After this shame, their minds regained clarity. They bowed to Hong Jun and said, "Thank you, eldest senior brother, for your guidance." Seeing that everyone had recovered, Hong Jun smiled slightly and said, "This is a small matter. Just keep it in your heart. Now let's go and see Master to report." Yes. After that scene just now, everyone was even more convinced of Hong Jun's authority. They immediately agreed in unison. Hong Jun nodded. With a thought was transmitted through the connection of the entire virtual world. This thought instantly passed through an incomparably mysterious channel and crossed an unknown distance. It was transmitted to Luo Fan's mind and will in the mysterious location of the endless starry sky. It was sensed by Luo Fan. At that moment, Luo Fan was using the opportunity of the Void Wuji Palace and the primordial world to comprehend the mysteries of the 296 billion square meters of evolution of the world. Suddenly, he received this thought. With a thought, he knew what had happened. With a thought, he split a bit of his mind and directly condensed an incarnation in the virtual world through the Netherworld network, appearing in front of Hong Jun and the others. Chapter 477. When everyone saw Luo Fan, they naturally greeted each other and did not mention anything else. After the greeting, everyone elected Hong Jun to report to Luo Fan what they had done and their various achievements over the years. Although Luo Fan had long known what they had done, he did not stop them from reporting. He only listened to Hong Jun with a smile and nodded from time to time. Some things were not about the result, but the process. After Hong Jun finished reporting, Luo Fan smiled and said, "You have all done well over the years. It's all thanks to your hard work that we can survive this great calamity. I am very pleased." Hearing Luo Fan's praise, everyone, including Hong Jun, felt extremely happy. They felt that all the hard work over the years was worth it. At this time, Luo Fan had already surpassed the half-step Tai true number and was close to achieving the Tai true number. His every word, action, and thought naturally caused the surrounding void to evolve. Although his praise was only a few words, under the influence of the surrounding void, It made everyone feel that the entire world seemed to have undergone an inexplicable change, as if the entire world was praising them. In addition, Luo Fan was a supreme existence in their hearts, which was why there was such a huge reaction. Luo Fan waited for everyone to calm down before saying, "There will be someone else to deal with the aftermath of this virtual world. You guys come with me." With that, without waiting for everyone to react, he waved his hand, and everyone naturally left the virtual world. Their minds returned to their original bodies in the primordial world. Then, their original bodies were affected by an indescribably mysterious power and disappeared from the primordial world in an instant. The entire process was natural, just like all the natural changes in the primordial world and the evolution of all the laws of heaven and earth. There was no trace of divine power or artificial power at all. During the process, Hong Jun and the others did not feel anything strange at all. In fact, apart from Hong Jun, who could sense that his mind had returned to the original body of the primordial world, the others only felt that when Luo Fan waved his hand, they suddenly arrived at a completely unfamiliar place. They seemed to have never been here before, but they felt inexplicably familiar. Moreover, the body that was originally virtual in the virtual world suddenly became real almost at the same time. In the endless starry sky of the primordial world, in an extremely mysterious place, where the void Wuji Palace had merged with the primordial world, several figures suddenly appeared in the void. They were Hong Jun and the others. This was an extremely basic power that Luo Fan had produced after the void Wuji Palace merged with the primordial world. He had brought Hong Jun and the others, who were scattered throughout the primordial world, to this place. When the few of them stepped into the void and saw the incomparably mysterious scene before them, an indescribable shock suddenly resounded in everyone's minds. This place was extremely mysterious. Although Luo Fan was able to be so calm and could even enter and exit so easily, he thought that this place was very ordinary. In fact, the mysteries contained in this place were not inferior to those of Buzhou Mountain. Buzhou Mountain was formed from Pangu's spine. The mysteries contained in it were related to Pangu. The mysteries contained within were the various mysteries of Pangu. At this position, as long as one lowered their head, they would be able to see the entire primordial world. That was equivalent to being able to see the entire primordial world as long as he lowered his head. He could find all the mysteries of the primordial world. That was equivalent to containing everything related to Pangu, the creation of the world, the mysteries of the natural structure of the world, and the traces of the supreme great Tao of the primordial world. In such a mystical place, if someone with amazing aptitude were to suddenly descend here and visualize it in his mind, he would definitely be able to comprehend all kinds of supreme technique. It would even be more useful and mysterious than visualizing Mount Buzhou. The reason why Luo Fan could face this place so easily and see it as if it was an ordinary observation position was because he had an unimaginable understanding of the structure of the entire primordial world. He had a connate God that surpassed all the primordial world's primordial world. Naturally, he did not feel much when he went deep into the place. However, Hong Jun and the others were naturally different. At that moment, only the miniature of the primordial world was left in their minds. Hong Jun and the others were all people with astonishing aptitude. Of course, they knew how rare this opportunity was. At that moment, he used all his strength to engrave the miniature of the primordial world in the depths of his spirit and turned it into a memory imprint that he would never forget. After a long time, they finally regained their senses. They looked at each other and felt inexplicably happy and shocked. It's a pity that Pangu's primordial spirit has already been retracted by the Supreme Great Tao. Otherwise, they would probably be able to comprehend the supreme cultivation technique with just a glance. Luo Fan, who was in the strange hall of the Limitless Void Palace, saw the reactions of Hong Jun and the others. He felt that it was a pity. Back then, with the help of Pangu's primordial spirit, Luo Fan was able to comprehend the fundamental technique that he was cultivating by visualizing Buzhou Mountain. Although there were all sorts of opportunities, it was enough to prove how helpful Pangu's primordial spirit was to such visualization. If Hong Jun and the others still had Pangu's primordial spirit in their bodies, they would be able to visualize the miniature of the entire primordial world. Even if they could not comprehend the fundamental technique that Luo Fan had comprehended, they would definitely be able to comprehend some techniques that were extremely suitable for their own cultivation. Of course, that thought only flashed through his mind. After all, that was already destined. There was no point in regretting it now. Luo Fan naturally could not waste too much effort on that. With a slight thought, a guiding force acted on Hong Jun and the others. The appearance of the guiding force made Hong Jun and the others know that it was the summons of their master, father, and grandfather. They did not resist and followed the guiding force across the layers of void, heading towards the strange hall of the Limitless Void Palace. After the Limitless Void Palace merged with the primordial world, it possessed all sorts of supreme power that it originally did not possess. Naturally, it possessed all sorts of mysterious defensive abilities. At that moment, although Hong Jun had already arrived at this mysterious place that seemed to be extremely close to the Limitless Void Palace, with the abilities of Hong Jun and the others, if they wanted to fly to this strange hall with their own strength, they would probably need to spend dozens of years. Moreover, there was also the possibility of the influence of the 3,000 minor realms and a dimensional realm. Therefore, Luo Fan could not ignore them. Under the guidance of the guiding force, Hong Jun and the others only felt that they had turned into streams of light. There seemed to be countless space-time flashing around them. As the light and shadow changed, it seemed that there were billions of worlds rushing towards them and then being thrown far away. In a trance, they arrived at an incomparably strange yet familiar hall. When they arrived, Hong Jun and the rest instantly came to a realization and understood where they were. Chapter 478. Hong Jun and the others had been brought to the Wuji Palace by Luo Fan to cultivate. Lei Jiuxiao, in particular, had spent most of his life there. Therefore, they were more familiar with the Wuji Palace than they were with the untainted world. Although only a small part of the strange palace appeared in front of them, the architectural style, the material of the floor, and the familiarity made them instantly understand that they had come to the Wuji Palace of the Void. However, although they were familiar with the strange palace in front of them, the moment they confirmed that they were inside the Wuji Palace, an endless amount of strange aura crashed towards them like a surging river. It made them feel as if they had fallen into a completely unfamiliar and unpredictable world. After the Wuji Palace merged with the untainted world, it naturally formed a mysterious connection with the 296 million square miles of worlds that were scattered across the untainted world. This caused the aura of the 296 million square miles to naturally fill the Wuji Palace. At this moment, what Hong Jun and the others sensed was the mysterious aura that was emitted by the 296 million square miles of worlds. Sensing these auras, the others were fine. They only felt that it was mysterious and inexplicable. It was as if they could vaguely find some auras that corresponded to their own Tao. However, Hong Jun was instantly shocked and felt that he could not control himself. This seems to be the true meaning of indestructibility. This thought filled Hong Jun's mind, causing him to almost be unable to think clearly. Hong Jun's cultivation had already reached the golden immortal realm. His earthly immortal Tao fruit had also reached the perfection realm. His Tao heart had even reached the 8th realm of Tao heart, close to the perfection realm. With the support of these two, how could Luo Fu and the others compare to the strength of his perception? Almost at every moment, he was processing information that was thousands or even tens of thousands of times more than what Luo Fu and the others had. The moment he sensed these 296 billion auras that came from all over the world, they would naturally combine into billions of different combinations, and he would naturally be able to combine that indestructible aura. Of course, Hong Jun had not comprehended the indestructible true intent after all, so the indestructible aura seemed to be wrong in his mind. Although he knew that it contained the indestructible true intent, he was unable to deduce it out of thin air. Under the stimulation of this seemingly right feeling, Hong Jun was many times more anxious than Luo Fu and the others. Fortunately, he knew that this was his master's magic treasure, and it wasn't a place where he could act presumptuously. Thus, even though he was anxious in his heart, he was barely able to control himself and didn't do anything inappropriate. However, even so, his eyes still revealed an uncontrollable eagerness. At this moment, a greeting resounded in everyone's ears. "All of you come here quickly." The voice was calm and dignified. It was Luo Fan's voice. Although it was just a voice, and they couldn't even detect where the voice came from, an inexplicable feeling instantly appeared in everyone's mind, allowing them to instantly understand where the "here" that Luo Fan mentioned was. Immediately, everyone bowed and stepped forward, walking in a certain direction in the hall. The rules in the hall were mysterious and inexplicable. If they didn't know their destination and just wandered around, they probably wouldn't be able to walk through the strange hall even if they walked to the end of the world. However, if they knew where their destination was, they only needed to walk in any direction to reach their destination in a very short amount of time. At this moment, Hong Jun and the others were like that. After an unknown period of time, which seemed to be just a moment, but also like they had been trekking for hundreds of millions of years, they arrived at a platform. The platform floated above a boundless ocean. There was no path around the platform that connected to the outside world. It was as if there was only this platform in the entire world, except for the ocean. No matter how Hong Jun and the others looked into the distance or how they deduced, they could not find the path they had taken. They could not find the strange hall in their memories. This was not the kind of secret technique in the secular world, because Hong Jun and the others clearly remembered every process of walking from the strange hall to the platform. He clearly knew every step he had taken, and knew every detail of how he had walked from the strange palace to where he was now. After being stunned for a long time, Hong Jun and the others finally regained their senses. They bowed to Luo Fan, who was standing calmly in the middle of the platform. However, they already understood that the secret technique that Luo Fan had used was not something that they could understand at the moment. They suppressed the shock and surprise in their hearts. Luo Fan did not look at them. With a wave of his hand, they naturally stood up. He said, "This place can reflect the scene of the newly born one. 296 billion square meters of the primordial world. It can also sense the aura of the various worlds. You can choose a few worlds to experience." Hong Jun and the others looked around and saw that the black waves were boundless. Within a radius of billions of miles, the sea was so calm that there were no waves at all. It was like a boundless mirror, reflecting the boundless dark void above. There were no other so-called scenes of the various worlds. However, Hong Jun and the others trusted Luo Fan to the extreme. Since Luo Fan said that there were scenes of 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth reflected in it, there was naturally such a scene. They did not see it. It was just that their method of viewing was wrong, or they were not determined enough. They had such thoughts. After Hong Jun and the others thanked Luo Fan, they sat down cross-legged on the sea outside the platform. They silently circulated their Dharma powers and activated their own senses. Various rays of light shot out from their eyes. They relied on their own understanding or the various mysterious supernatural powers that Luo Fan had imparted to try their best to understand and observe the scenes of the 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth that Luo Fan had mentioned, as well as the 296 billion auras. Luo Fan, who had separated a trace of his mind to observe the actions of Hong Jun and the others, smiled slightly when he saw their performance. He was relieved and focused all his attention on the 296 billion square meters of heaven and earth. As for what kind of gains Hong Jun and the others could obtain, it could only depend on their efforts and opportunities. It was not something that Luo Fan could control at will. Hong Jun and the others gradually distinguished themselves in the process of such efforts. Hong Jun was far better than his peers. After sitting down cross-legged for a few hours, his body gradually emitted an inexplicable wave. It gradually attracted the strange aura that flowed through the platform through some mysterious channel. The scene in his eyes also changed mysteriously. The strange aura was the endless aura that he had sensed when he had just stepped into the Wuji Palace's strange hall in the void. Only, the aura he sensed now was millions and millions of times denser than before, millions and millions of times clearer. Moreover, these auras were continuously converging and evolving that seemingly right, yet not quite imperishable aura that he could only vaguely sense before. The indestructible true meaning filled the world and spread out. In front of him, the sea that was originally only reflecting an infinite dark void was divided into many layers. Each layer was a wonder of a world. Each layer was a primitive scene that was developing from the beginning to the direction of perfection, revealing the most subtle mystery of the structure of the world. I see. It turns out that this place isn't a reflection of the boundless void, but a reflection of the one. 296 billion square miles of the world. The reason why it appears so dark is because the scenes of the one. 296 billion square miles of the world are completely superimposed, covering each other. This thought flashed through Hong Jun's mind. After this thought, he instantly understood what his master had said before. With my ability, I'm afraid I can only divide the scenes of the world from thousands of square miles. If there are more, I won't be able to deal with them at all, and I won't be able to distinguish the boundaries. After secretly sighing, Hong Jun calmed himself down and tried hard to find a world that matched the Tao that he had comprehended in the one. 296 billion square miles of the world. Each of the 296 billion square miles of the world was more or less different from the other world. That was why it could be said that a world that was compatible with the Tao that all living beings had comprehended could be found. There were simply too many worlds, and even if each world was only slightly different from the previous one, the accumulation of such changes would cause the original world to have a completely different set of rules from the final world. After just a few days, Hong Jun had picked out the worlds he needed. Although these worlds were only about 1,000 square miles, occupying a total of 296 billion square miles was only a small insignificant amount, Hong Jun still decisively excluded all the other worlds from his range of vision and only locked onto these 1,000 square miles of the world. At the same time, he also excluded all the auras of the 296 billion square miles from his perception, except for the auras that corresponded to these 1,000 square miles of the world. Then, he corresponded this aura with the heavens and the earth, and imprinted it in his mind. Just like Luo Fan, he quietly bore the energy fluctuations produced by the evolution of the heavens and the earth, cleansing his own soul, and comprehending the supreme principles revealed within when the 296 billion square miles of auras gathered together, they could give rise to an indestructible aura, which contained the supreme indestructible true meaning. How could Hong Jun not know this? However, he knew better than anyone else that if he wanted to succeed in one move and evolve the 296 billion square miles of auras into the indestructible aura, and directly comprehend the supreme indestructible true meaning from the indestructible aura, the final result would be that he would gain nothing. It might even affect his Tao heart and his cultivation realm because the amount of information contained within was too great. His cultivation was not enough to support him processing so much information. Chapter 479. With this choice, Hong Jun's mind gradually entered a mysterious and indescribable state. he felt that he seemed to have some kind of inexplicable connection with the supreme great Tao that he could not find. The Tao that he had comprehended for tens of thousands of years was changing in a way that he could not find any traces of. His figure also gradually became mysterious, as if he had already fused with the void, causing others to involuntarily ignore him. It was as if he was only formed by the colors of the void, an illusory existence. After Hong Jun, Luo Fu, Guang Pu, Lei Jiuxiao, and the others gradually changed. They saw some clues from the boundless sea. Perhaps they could not separate the scenes of the world as clearly as Hong Jun could, and they could not distinguish the auras, but they more or less gained something. What they saw and sensed might be different from reality, but compared to their current cultivation realm and Tao heart realm, it was already an extremely rare opportunity. It was enough for them to obtain relatively huge benefit. Time passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed in the strange palace of the Void Wuji Palace. After Hong Jun and the others were led away by Luo Fan, the spike in the virtual world instantly sensed the changes in the entire virtual world. In that instant, he had an epiphany. I have to take care of all the aftermath work in this virtual world. After this understanding, he could not help but feel a sense of loss. However, this sense of loss only remained in his mind for less than a moment. After all, there were many benefits for him to deal with the aftermath of this virtual world. At the very least, it could allow him to have a deeper understanding of how the entire virtual world worked. After a moment of loss, he moved his mind and arrived at the center of the demon-killing domain. Once he arrived here, an infinite amount of information surged out from the void and entered his mind and consciousness. In an instant, he had a complete grasp of the entire demon-killing domain. As for those demon-killing cultivators who were still in the demon-killing domain, those who were either trying to comprehend the mystic arts, those who were filled with regret, those who were in a daze, or those who were resting, Jiang Yi immediately sensed them. Sensing the presence of so many demon-killing cultivators, Ji Tu's thoughts moved, and a thought spread throughout the entire demon-killing region. All the demon-killing cultivators within the demon-killing region could sense it at the same time. The great calamity this time has come to an end, and this devil destruction domain will be sealed from now on. Fellow Taoists, please leave swiftly and wait for the situation to change in the future before you can step foot into this domain again. This thought reverberated in the minds of many demon-killing cultivators. At once, those demon-killing cultivators who were immersed in their own thoughts were jolted awake. Unlike Hong Jun and the others, these demon-slaying cultivators did not think that the great tribulation of heaven and earth would be easy to pass. Instead, it was the most difficult, most tragic, most troublesome, most dangerous, and at the same time, the most painful war they had ever fought. Before this war, they had prepared for it for tens of thousands of years. In these tens of thousands of years, they had been fighting and killing almost all the time. There was not a single moment of leisure. They had completely suppressed the battle instincts hidden deep in their souls. Although the rewards were huge, the hardships involved were not to be mentioned. Although only a few years had passed since the Great Tribulation had begun, it had been much more difficult and painful than the tens of thousands of years before. This was because, unlike the tens of thousands of years before, what they had encountered in these few years were real extraterrestrial demons. They were real existences. Although their mystical abilities were not necessarily comparable to the many demonic beings they had encountered in the tens of thousands of years before, there were so many of them that it was enough to make one break down. What's more, they had all sorts of joint attack formations and joint attack techniques. The power they could unleash was much stronger than the virtual demonic beings they had encountered previously. Therefore, in these few years, almost every single one of these demon-killing cultivators had died at least 100 times. Some of them had even died tens of thousands of times. Although they could be reborn every time they died, the feeling of death was no different from real death. That feeling was enough to make an ordinary person's mind break down. If not for the fact that these demon-killing cultivators were not ordinary people, just the number of times they had died would have been enough to cripple them. "So, it's really over," sighs could be heard coming from everywhere. Amidst their melancholy, these demon-killing cultivators activated the mechanism of the demon-killing domain one after another. Their figures crossed the void and directly left the demon-killing domain, appearing on the platform outside the demon-killing domain. After these demon-killing cultivators left one after another, G2 sighed. With a slight thought, the void in the entire demon-killing domain began to ripple and slowly turn into nothingness. After a few minutes, the demon-killing domain that encompassed the entire galaxy gradually disappeared into the void. The place where the demon-killing domain had originally been had become a pitch-black void. The light, the countless stars, the countless planets, and the endless stardust had all disappeared without a trace. It was as if they had never existed in this void. This was because G2 had directly used his control over the demon-killing domain to hide the entire demon-killing domain. No living creature could sense it anymore. At this moment, the demon-killing domain seemed to have disappeared, but in fact, it was still there. However, even if its location did not change, under the rules of the virtual world, no living creature could step into it. After doing all this, G2's thoughts spread out and carefully sensed the entire virtual world. He sensed the foundations of the virtual world that had merged with the Yellow Springs. This virtual world had gone through such a huge battle that affected the entire primordial world. Even though the virtual world had been set up by Luo Fan and was slightly mysterious, it could not possibly remain unscathed. Naturally, G2 had to take good care of it. As he sensed the entire virtual world and the Yellow Springs, G2's figure shuttled between the virtual world and the primordial world. His figure also traversed the infinite void of the virtual world and appeared in various places that had been affected by the battle. However, he no longer had the energy to care about the many demon-killing cultivators. After the billions of demon-killing cultivators arrived on the platform, they discovered that not long after, the demon-killing domain behind them gradually changed. In the end, it disappeared in front of their eyes as if it had turned into nothingness. This change caused the many demon-killing cultivators' expressions to become rather complicated. Some of them could not bear to look back, some of them relaxed, and some of them let go of a heavy burden in their hearts. There was joy and even reluctance. After the demon-killing domain disappeared for a long time, the many demon-killing cultivators slowly returned to normal. When they returned to normal, the entire platform became lively. Countless information, thoughts, and words constantly flowed back and forth in the spiritual consciousness network. Almost instinctively, the many demon-killing cultivators automatically divided into tens of thousands of groups. They were separated according to the 3,000 great Daos, the 48,000 men, and some famous itinerant cultivators. Chapter 480. After fighting together all these years, many demon-killing cultivators felt a sense of belonging to their respective organizations. Even though the great calamity of heaven and earth had ended and these demon-killing cultivators no longer needed to gather in one place to prepare for battle. The 3,000 great Dao, the 48,000 men, and the various itinerant cultivators had formed a loose organization that divided the entire platform into tens of thousands of parts. Moreover, because each organization's strength was different, their achievements and reputations in the battles over the years were different. The positions they occupied were also different. But these were just small details. There was no need to pay too much attention to them. When these demon-killing cultivators saw the people they were familiar with, they felt a sense of closeness and a sense of vicissitude. Naturally, there was a commotion. After a few days, the fate of these organizations formed by many demon-killing cultivators finally changed after the war. Stronger organizations like the 3,000 Great Dao were more cohesive. Although many demon-killing cultivators left, they still managed to keep their organizations together. Organizations like the Sky Sword sect did not even lose a single member. As for the 48,000 men, perhaps because they were weaker, the members of these organizations did not have a strong sense of belonging. However, only a few of these organizations managed to maintain their integrity. Most of the organizations had their members leave. Only a few demon-killing cultivators stayed because of old friendship. The loose organizations formed by many itinerant cultivators were different from the 3,000 Great Tao and the 48,000 men. Originally, when they participated in the Great Tribulation, these demon-killing cultivators gathered around the famous itinerant cultivators as the core. They formed a loose organization without strict rules and regulations. In battle, they only provided limited support. They did not cooperate as meticulously as the 3,000 Great Tao and the 48,000 other men. But now, after the great calamity had passed, these demon-killing cultivators did not need to fight anymore. Instead, these itinerant cultivators formed a tight group of men because of their shared ideals. They planned to combine their daos and work together to create a cultivation method that combined the strengths of everyone's daos and spread them to the primordial world. Although there were not many of these groups, there were still more than 100 of them. These groups had just been formed, but they naturally attracted many demon-killing cultivators to join them. Some of these demon-killing cultivators were not strong. Some did not cultivate their cultivation methods well. Some were people who sought Tao without men. Of course, most of them were postnatal lifeforms. They belonged to the small kiliacosm in Luo Fan's Void Wuji Palace. But there were also innate gods. Men who were not satisfied with the techniques they had comprehended would join these men's sections. In comparison, almost all the members of the 3,000 Great Tao and the 48,000 other sects added up would only be about the same as the total number of people in these hundreds of sections. After dispersing, the demon-slaying cultivators who had found an organization and formed a male sect agreed on a time and place to meet in the primordial world according to the situation. Then, they dispersed their bodies and wills in the virtual world and returned to their bodies in the primordial world. In just a few days, almost all the demon-killing cultivators, who were the main fighting force of the great tribulation of heaven and earth, had disappeared from the virtual world. In the virtual world, apart from the demon-slaying cultivators, there were countless other living creatures. Therefore, the departure of the billions of demon-slaying cultivators did not make the virtual world desolate. It only made the virtual world less battle-hungry and the spiritual sense network less peaceful, which was rare. The untainted land creatures who spent all day and night in the virtual world were not used to it. In the untainted world, in the huge lake that Luo Fan had specially found for many people who had ascended from the spirit world, countless escape lights streaked across the sky, using all kinds of flying escape method. Some of them were heading toward an island on the lake, some were heading outside the lake, and some were heading toward an unknown distance. These were naturally the demon-slaying cultivators who had been summoned by various sects and organizations. On an island near the edge of the lake, it was shrouded in clouds and mist. Innate Yuan Qi and chaotic Yuan Qi were intertwining, turning into a mysterious Qi that circled around the island, forming all kinds of inexplicable and incredible scenes. This island was vast, with a radius of 1,000,000 kilometers, and was about the same size as a continent. There were mountains, rivers, grasslands, hills, plains, deserts, plateaus, and valleys. Almost all kinds of terrain could be found on it. All kinds of ordinary, powerful, mysterious, and mediocre living creatures lived comfortably on this island. From time to time, escape lights rose from a certain part of the island and went to another part of the island or outside the island at an unimaginable speed. This island was called the Three Mother Island. It was the residence of Luo Fan's 3 female subordinates, Shuzi Luan, Tianyi, and Lu Xia. Big Sister, although we have taken the lead by establishing the 3-god sect, the other 103 male sects are not easy to deal with. Many of the itinerant cultivators' original techniques are already very profound. If we gather the techniques of many itinerant cultivators to create a new technique, it will be even more profound. I'm afraid that the techniques we teach will not be advantageous. In a huge hall in the center of the Three-Mother Island, Tian-Yi, who was sitting on a throne, frowned and said to Shuzi Luan, who was sitting in the middle. In these years, because of the existence of the demon-killing area, they had more time to teach. Thus, their male sect had developed to a considerable scale. There were hundreds of thousands of disciples under them. Among them, there were 108 true disciples and more than 3,000 inner disciples. During this process, the three of them had also established their status and addressed each other as sisters. Among them, Shuzi Luan was the steadiest and the most dignified. She was addressed as the big sister. Tian-Yi was slightly inferior and became the second sister. Lu Xia became the third sister. At this moment, the three of them were discussing countermeasures for the many itinerant cultivators that had formed so many organizations and so many male sections. After all, with so many organizations and so many male sects, they would definitely divide their teaching resources and hinder their teaching progress. They could not help but be concerned. Second sister, have you forgotten our main goal? Shuzi Luan smiled and said. The three of them were all beautiful, and their bodies were filled with a profound aura of the Tao. They sat on their thrones and shone brightly, illuminating the entire hall. At this moment, when Shuzi Luan smiled, the hall seemed to be filled with a strange fragrance. Second sister, our ultimate goal isn't to spread the Tao among these post-celestial beings, but to spread the Tao to the numerous newly born innate gods? That's right. Right now, the three-god sect is just a place for us to practice. So what if the teaching resources are divided? Lu Xia, who was on the other side, smiled and said. Shuzi Luan smiled and nodded. Tian-Yi was suddenly enlightened by her sisters. She smiled and said, That's right. I didn't think that after being the man leader for so many years, I would almost forget my original goal. Shuzi Luan smiled and said, However, we have to deal with this matter. After all, if these male sects suppress our three-god sect, those innate gods might also be snatched by them. It's also possible that they'll snatch it away. That's not good. Chapter 481. Big Sister is right, but how should we deal with it? Tian-Yi regained her composure and said with a smile. This is easy. With the Tao that you and I have learned from teacher, we will definitely be much more profound than other itinerant cultivators. As long as we create a cultivation method that surpasses the other male sects, even if many postnatal living beings will be attracted to the other male sects, we will also be able to highlight the profundity of our cultivation method. What about the connate gods? Their attractiveness might even increase, the Luan said with a smile. That's right. Lu Xia's eyes lit up. The appearance of so many male sects in the primordial world meant that there were hundreds more options for the connate and postnatal living beings to seek Tao than before. They would definitely share the resources that the three of them used to pass on their Tao. This was unavoidable. Even if the Luan's cultivation realm rose to Luo Fan's current realm, she would not be able to reverse the situation. Thus, they could only settle for the next best thing. They would compete with the 100 male sects so that their three-god sect could stand out. Even if the other male sects came to compete, they would definitely occupy most of the resources. After the three finished their discussion, they did not stay any longer. Immediately, an auspicious cloud rushed out from each of their heads. Among them, the auspicious cloud above the Luan's head was pure gold. It covered an area of 12,960 acres. Tian-Yi's auspicious cloud was gold. It covered an area of 9,999 acres. Lu Xia's auspicious cloud was light yellow. It covered an area of 8,888 acres. The three auspicious clouds were so vast, but the entire hall was even more mysterious. Even though the combined area of the three auspicious clouds seemed to be much larger than the hall, the entire hall still easily contained the three auspicious clouds. It even seemed rather spacious, with most of the space left. This was because the hall had been refined by the three of them. It had become a mysterious place that was similar to a residence. It possessed some of the mysteries of a residence. That was why it had the mysterious characteristic of being able to contain items that far exceeded its size. The three auspicious clouds were not formed by powers like primordial chi, true essence, or dharma power. Instead, they were formed by countless dust-like words, patterns, talismans, patterns, pictures, symbols, and other carriers that recorded information. If all kinds of information carriers in each cloud were spread out, it would be a magnificent masterpiece of tens of thousands of words, hundreds of thousands of words. These three auspicious clouds were condensed from the trio's lifetime cultivation. They were the manifestation of their comprehension towards the profundities of the grand Tao and the supreme principles of the universe. After the three auspicious clouds appeared, the three of them closed their eyes. Their breathing became extremely calm, as if they had fallen into silence. Following their actions, the three auspicious clouds above their heads began to come into contact. At the same time that an extremely intense conflict occurred, they were also undergoing some sort of extremely subtle fusion. After an unknown period of time, the three auspicious clouds merged into one. This fused auspicious cloud emitted a dazzling golden light. It was pure and condensed, as if it was formed by the accumulation of a single, incomparably pure and mysterious existence. It surged endlessly above the heads of the three of them. As it trembled, it seemed to be brewing some kind of mysterious existence that surpassed the imagination of all living beings. Time flew by, and it was unknown how much time had passed. During the process of the three of them creating the method, although the hall was not sealed, an unfathomable will surged into the sky. The entire three-mother island could sense it. The 108 true disciples, 3,000 inner disciples, and hundreds of thousands of outer disciples naturally sensed the unusual profoundness of the hall. The true disciples' status was higher than all the other disciples. Originally, they could request to meet the three of them at any time. However, under the unfathomable will that surged into the sky, they did not dare to take a step into the hall easily. They could only watch from a mountain far away from the hall in anticipation. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. During these 100 years, the primordial world was in turmoil. Of course, this turmoil was not due to bloodshed, but due to the disciples becoming disciples. This lake was the gathering place of almost all the postnatal living beings in the primordial world. As a result, it became the center of the turmoil. During these 100 years, the tens of thousands of barren islands in the lake had become extremely prosperous. Rays of spiritual light rose from these islands, announcing their existence to the entire world. These islands were the mountains set up by the 3,000 great Tao, the 48,000 sidemen, and most of the 108 men's sects in the lake. Of course, these mountains were only the branches of the great Tao, the sidemen, and the men's sections. They were not the root of these organizations. The existence of these mountains was naturally to recruit members, subordinates, and disciples from the many postnatal living beings in the lake. 100 years ago, when the 3,000 great Tao, the 48,000 sidemen, and the 108 men's sects decided to surpass the virtual world, many postnatal living beings had already used various methods to head towards the place where they had originally agreed to gather. However, those were only relatively stronger. They had the ability to travel long distances and had a firm will to walk in the primordial world. Compared to most of the other postnatal living beings, the primordial world was too vast. Although the gathering places of those organizations were all around Buzhou Mountain, many Khanate gods and demon-killing cultivators were currently at the foot of Buzhou Mountain. It was too far for them. Although the gathering places of those organizations were all around Buzhou Mountain, many Khanate gods and demon-killing cultivators were all at the foot of Buzhou Mountain. It was too far for them. If they had to rush over such a long distance with their own strength, it would probably take them tens of thousands of years to do so. Obviously, there were very few living beings who had the determination to spend tens of thousands of years rushing to the gathering place. Therefore, if those organizations did not think of a way, even if the many postnatal living beings wanted to join their organizations, they would not be able to rush over. It was precisely because of this consideration that almost all the organizations had unanimously found an island in the lake to set up, except for a few who would rather go without than have a shoddy quality. They felt that those who did not have the determination to join their organizations were not qualified to do so. It was not an easy task to create a universal cultivation method. Among the 108 men's sects, after spending 100 years, only a few men's sects had managed to create a cultivation method that was barely presentable. If they could not create a cultivation method that could be cultivated by many postnatal living beings, the gathering power of the men's sects would naturally not be too strong. Therefore, among the tens of thousands of islands, the ones with the strongest spiritual light were the organizations like the 3,000 Great Tao and the 48,000 Sidemen. Among the other men's sects, only a few men's sects could compare to a few other organizations in terms of spiritual light. However, that was obviously only temporary. Based on the essential difference between the cultivation of the male sex and the 3,000 Daos and the 48,000 Daos, one could guess that once the male sex created their respective sect-guarding cultivation techniques, the situation would definitely undergo earth-shattering changes. Chapter 482. On this day, countless sounds of wind and thunder suddenly rose into the sky from Three Mother Island, which was near the edge of the lake. The astral wind, lightning, and fire layer above 45,000 kilometers seemed to have been struck by an invisible force, and a huge hole with a radius of several million kilometers was broken. The 9 layers of astral wind, thunder, and fire, which had formed a complete and strict system, suddenly collapsed with a loud bang under the effect of a mysterious power that came from the dark. Then they reassembled. In the end, they turned into countless weapons that looked like sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, tridents, and so on. However, they contained endless killing intent and the primordial world's endless massacre intent. Every single one of these monstrous weapons was over 10,000 feet in length, and they were like divine weapons of giants. Just a single one of these weapons alone possessed a power that would shock any living being to the point of being unable to control themselves. With billions upon billions of these weapons linked together, the level of shock they would feel would increase by trillions upon trillions of times. Even innate gods? Seeing this, they could not help but be shocked. The postnatal living beings who did not even have the ability to walk freely in the primordial world and could only join the various organizations and sects in the lake performed even worse. At the moment when billions of things were formed, almost every living being who sensed this scene was dumbfounded. Some were even so scared that they fell to the ground, unable to control themselves. These billions of objects took shape in the void, and in an instant, they were like a lake pouring down from the 9 heavens, crashing down toward the 3 motherly islands below. They were so fast that they seemed to teleport. Almost at the same time, they had already pounced on 3 Mother Island. They were about to drown 3 Mother Island, as if they were about to wipe 3 Mother Island from the primordial world. At this moment, a soft een came from 3 Mother Island. The een was very light, as if a living being was talking softly in its sleep. It was not much louder than breathing, but it spread across the entire lake. The billions of living beings on the lake immediately heard the een in their mind. They even felt that the een seemed to contain endless mysterious thoughts and endless cultivation method. The moment the een was heard, the billions of things formed by the astral wind, lightning, and fire suddenly stopped. It was as if time had suddenly stopped, and everything was frozen in the void. It directly formed a huge pillar that connected 3 Motherly Island to the astral wind, thunder, and fire layer above 90,000 kilometers. The weapons that were at least 100,000 feet long seemed to have grown out of thin air. It was as if no power could shake them, and no power could move them at all. It was as if they had existed in that space since ancient times. An unknown amount of time passed. It seemed like only a millionth of an instant, but it also seemed like thousands of years had passed. The billions of things moved again, and continued to descend from the sky at an unimaginable speed, smashing into the three motherly island. However, this time it was completely different from before. Previously, that blast seemed to have converted the power of the entire universe into a destructive force that wanted to wipe out the three motherly island. At this moment, it seemed to be attracted by an indescribable force. It wanted to escape but was unable to. Moreover, the result was different from what he had expected. However, there was no reaction from the Samu Island despite the billions of things crashing in. Even the grass, wood, and dust on it didn't move at all. It was as if the billions of things were from another world, a virtual existence, a shadow of nothingness. This process lasted for several hours. After several hours, the millions of miles of astral wind, thunder, and fire layer above 90,000 kilometers disappeared without a trace. The sky turned into an empty hole that was millions of miles in circumference, and one could see the endless starry sky above. When the smallest starlight could be clearly seen, a speck of chaotic light slowly lit up in the center of the three motherly island. As soon as it appeared, the inexhaustible innate energy and chaotic energy of the entire three-mother island began to crazily gather towards it, as if they were attracted by a black hole. In an instant, it formed an increasingly large whirlpool that wrapped around the center of the speck of chaotic light. The scene created by the rapid flow of innate energy and chaotic energy was extremely grand, but none of the living beings who were paying attention to this place paid attention to the grand scene created by the flow of energy. What they were paying attention to was the change caused by the speck of chaotic light. The feelings of the 108 true disciples, the 3,000 inner disciples, and the hundreds of thousands of outer disciples of the Three Gods sect were different from those of the living beings who were paying attention to this place. What they felt was tens of thousands of times stronger than that of the other living beings. The moment the speck of chaotic light appeared, all the disciples of the Three Gods sect felt as if some indescribable, mysterious existence in the depths of their hearts had suddenly woken up from their dreams. There seemed to be an indescribable desire, an indescribable emotion, and an unimaginable joy emerging from the depths of their souls. In an instant, almost every disciple of the Three Gods sect burst into tears. However, at this moment, not a single disciple of the Three Gods sect felt ashamed or surprised. They were all attracted by the speck of chaotic light in the center of the island. After this speck of chaotic light attracted endless innate energy and chaotic energy into it, it grew very slowly and with great difficulty. After an unknown period of time, the speck of light suddenly split into three. From a speck of primal light it split into another speck of Hun primal light. However, it had three different colors, and each of them was leaning towards gold and silver. After the light was divided, the speed at which it absorbed the primal chaos chi and innate essence chi increased by 100 times. Not only was the yuan chi on the island attracted, but the endless yuan chi outside the island and all kinds of water essence were also crazily sucked into it. Above 90,000 miles, within the huge hole created by the astral wind, lightning and fire layer, there was an endless amount of starlight essence that transformed into a huge pillar of light that descended from the sky and entered the light. After an unknown period of time, in the darkness there seemed to be three indistinct thunderclaps. That the boundless suction force emitted by the light instantly disappeared. The light pillar formed by the star essence chi was naturally cut off, and the huge whirlpool of essence chi was instantly wiped out. Three primordial worlds appeared at the center of three motherly island, replacing the Hun chaotic radiance. Three realms in one breath, heaven and earth replace the Tao fruit. All laws are born from the heart, and this is the origin of the great Tao. A leisurely voice came from the three primordial worlds, resounding in the minds of countless living beings in the huge lake.